Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Tip-Off, the show that sets the stage for the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 2-game NBA slate and 12-game MLB slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. Welcome. Hope your Wednesday is off to a great start. Joining me today, we have Eric Lundquist, Chris Spags. Fellas, how we doing midweek? Let's check in. How are things? Are we good?
Is this like a mental health check? Did I miss something with Eric that he needs one more run here of support? I'm excited. It's Wednesday. We're at the halfway point of the working week. We got 2 sports to cover. The NBA's games matter once again. So I think it's looking all good here besides whatever concerns we have for Eric and his sanity right now.
Yeah, and we've got PGA Championship coming up this weekend. I like how you default to just like making fun of me at every single
No, that was genuine
point in time.
concern. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it sounds very genuine. I can hear it in your inflection. It's totally not sarcastic whatsoever. It's like the passive aggressive thing you get from your mom. Like, oh yeah, no, you're doing great. You're doing great. Not exactly. Yeah, PGA Championship. I'm super excited for that this weekend and excited to be back here talking some basketball, talking some MLB, hoping for a little better day than yesterday.
I know we mentioned getting Ben a booster seat last week. Today, it looks like I'm sitting on one. I'm not. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to slouch down. Jordan was trying to get me set beforehand, and I'm a little
You're so worried. I was going to say, and then beforehand, you're like, I'm not tan enough. I'm not this. Kayla, you're lovely. And I think if we need a mental health check anybody, it's Kayla and her self-confidence, because she's literally on a stream with like probably 95% dudes. Like, you're doing okay. You're going to be loved and accepted here in this space.
Yeah, and I didn't love when you had the Hulk Hogan skin tone for a while there and we looked extra ghoulish, like, oh, like we're the creatures who hang out with Kayla and talk about gambling and DFS. So I will say for me, I'm happy to have you be a little more on the tan side, unless we're going to all get together and lotion ourselves up properly to get tan for the summer. That
was a faulty setting on the camera, a white balance mishap. I did not do any spray tanning. I didn't do any bronzer. I don't know what that was. That was weird, but I kind of want it back.
But yeah, Picasso had the blue period. You had your Snooki period on the show. So represented.
Oh, Snooki.
Those were the days.
It's
wow.
Forever.
That was early on in the show. That was some good times.
Jersey Shore tried to make a comeback. That didn't really happen, did it? They didn't actually make a comeback. Did that gain any popularity?
Yeah, the Vacation was doing really good ratings for a while, but now I saw Ronnie this week was on hiatus to address some long-term mental health and whatever issues, which good for him if he's actually doing that. But I think the show may be losing some steam and then they're taking a little break. But the Family Vacations, I think, were like killing it for a minute there.
Oh my dear God. I love 2021.
I was more into the Laguna Beach Hill scene, which was the same time as Jersey Shore. So I never got into Jersey Shore. I was preoccupied with things on the left coast.
LC?
Exactly. Also, I ate a salad right before the show. So if I have like rogue lettuce in my teeth, just
nobody is noticing. Stop that.
Who's watching the show to look at Kayla? Gosh.
Yeah, absolutely nobody whatsoever. And we're going to start.
Just a little heads up. Yes, let's get into the NBA. But before we do, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that's in season. We have a NBA play-in giveaway on Twitter and Instagram today to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Very exciting. Check out the pinned tweet on @Awesemo_com to enter both. Just like, retweet, follow the accounts listed on the tweet, and reply who has more points tonight, LeBron or Steph. One random winner will be selected among correct guessers. Best of luck, everybody. Starting with our bad beats, Tuesday was especially treacherous as James Borrego started Bismack Biyombo in a do-or-die game for literally no reason whatsoever, plus the highest owned value pieces on the slate and Evan Fournier and Marcus Smart were complete garbage. Did you two somehow survive the slaughter? Eric, let's start with you.
No, I did not.
Short answer. Okay.
Next. No, it was painful. So Chris and I were on live before lock. I thought we had a great show. I felt really good about the slate. Then 15 minutes beforehand or 20 minutes beforehand, Bismack Biyombo was put in the starting lineup. And I've seen multiple times this season, and I literally said it on the show where I was like, oh, well, now we're at least guaranteed 4 minutes and he's 3,300 and you're looking for value. It was very value scarce. I wanted to make Westbrook my tournament pivot in any way possible, and he was kind of the key to doing that. It made no sense to me that you're going to start a guy and play him only 3 or 4 minutes. I don't care that, he's been in and out of the rotation for things like, it's a do or die game. And for you to go out, James Borrego, for you to go out and start a dude in a do or die game, get down, get put in a hole early. Like, you deserved it. You deserve to have that happen to you because you're supposed to just put your best players on the floor at every moment that you possibly can in an elimination game. If this was like an NCAA tournament and they did that in like a Final Four, could you imagine the kind of like wrath that he would get from like everybody down the line? Like, it made no sense to me in a 1-game sample where you need to win back-to-back games. You needed to go out there. It felt like he was tanking a play-in game. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and I did not enjoy it.
Yeah, well, obviously, we did that live before lock show. People got to see Eric and my process yesterday, trying to basically landing at the same outcome of trying to play 50% Bismack Biyombo just because the field didn't seem likely to be able to get there in time. The play-in game injury news, lineups not quite moving as much as we ended up seeing in the ownership. That there ended up being more ownership going to Cody Zeller than Bismack Biyombo, despite the price tag, despite him being a good DFS play, just because of the value and the chance to make different lineups. And yeah, it went really poorly. And I would say for me, everything really went poorly yesterday in a way that I guess I wasn't shocked by. The playoff basketball can be, could throw you some curveballs, but the guys like Marcus Smart, not really being in the mix in a meaningful way to be in a winning lineup. Guys like Evan Fournier, these look like spots that seemed like as a vessel of the slate that you had to get to. LaMelo Ball, I also thought was a good play, and he also fell victim to James Borrego, just getting this team blown out pretty much the second that game started. So it was ugly. I hope it'll be better, but I will say I am happy to see the Hornets go home. I feel like they very much deserve the outcome they got after that half-assed effort they put in yesterday.
And I think there's something to be taken away from like how to go about building lineups on some of these shorter slates. So we have a 2-gamer. The next 2 days, we have showdowns on Thursday and Friday. And I think something to look at going forward is building lineups based on game script. And I think that was maybe something we didn't emphasize enough. It's something I know Adam Scherer has talked a lot about. There's an article back from the middle of December when we had a couple shorter slates, just when the season was getting going, where he discussed, the process that you can go about building lineups for tournaments on 2-gamers. Like Goga Batadze at 1%, he's obviously going to be the main beneficiary of a 30-plus point blowout where Sabonis sits the entire fourth quarter. And I think maybe building some of those lineups, and he went perfectly with Malik Monk. And I think it was actually very sharp. And I'm not sure if any of the winning lineups really put the thought into it where it was like, what does that lineup look like? But Malik Monk would be your garbage time beneficiary in that spot for Charlotte as well. And both of them ended up in the optimal lineup on Fanduel and Draftkings. So I think there's something to be said about trying to build lineups. And I think you run into a buzzsaw if you're playing a bunch of under 10% owned plays on 2-game slates and like meaningfully going there and hoping that repeats itself. But I think it was very sharp for those 2 plays to go together in the blowout narrative from that game. And obviously it ended up being a tournament winning thing. And you really only need to have it work out one time for you in order to make 150K.
All right, let's get into our NBA play-in tournament. We've got the Spurs taking on the Grizzlies in the appetizer course of the Western Conference play-in tournament, and their depressed prices across the industry make them extremely important parts of tonight's slate. Spags, which ones are you prioritizing in this 2-game slate?
So the Spurs, to me, grade out incredibly well today on DraftKings, where I'm really confused by how well they grade out. And I do have some degree of belief in them. I know Memphis is the favorite right now. At least we're a 3-point favorite when I pulled in the data earlier today. And I think that's something I get why. I know Memphis has sort of been a better team than people, myself included, give them credit for all year long. But San Antonio, just things constricting in the way that it's going to with them, where a lot of possessions are going to go to DeMar DeRozan, a lot are going to go to DeJounte Murray. These are guys that I do have some degree of trust in. I think Rudy Gay, too, is another guy in the playoffs. I think you'll see his role potentially have the chance to increase, where he could be a guy who's relied on if you do see Keldon Johnson be mediocre, really, and these other guys on the wing be mediocre. And there's a lot of pathways here for Rudy Gay to gain minutes. But I think San Antonio can win it. So I'm very much a believer in playing a good amount of these guys. I like the price tags on them. And I think not to peer too far ahead into the future for the make or break, but I do think San Antonio players today will be key to me in a way that they usually have not been pretty much all regular season long.
Agreed. And I think I was trying to reverse engineer last night a little bit why it is that their price tags came down so much. The Spurs had the second hardest strength of schedule to finish out the season for last week. They had 4 games, 3 of them, their last 3. They faced the New York Knicks and then back-to-back games against the Phoenix Suns. So as a result, they basically had 3 of the slower, more difficult matchups that you could possibly have. And now they're getting a Memphis team that plays a little bit up in pace, not like fantastically up in pace, but definitely better than what they've been facing of late. And as a result, they didn't basically push any of those guys coming down the stretch. And now the price tags have kind of like caught up with that a little bit. So Jakob Poeltl, very meaningful. DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan, very meaningful. Keldon Johnson going to be a big piece over on FanDuel. And then kind of mixing and matching. And again, like I don't think there's necessarily like a blowout narrative that I want to be playing with this game. I think that this is going to be pretty darn competitive, but on the San Antonio side, lots of pieces that we're going to be looking to, and it's really going to come down to what that ownership finalizes and stabilizes. We're not waiting on any injury news like we were yesterday. We were waiting on pins and needles, so I don't see a lot changing here. Grayson Allen's really the only piece from either game that we're kind of waiting on, but yeah, DeJounte Murray on DraftKings, DeMar DeRozan on DraftKings, and then specifically looking at DeMar DeRozan over on Fanduel, it's going to be a crazy slate with Spurs.
Bananas.
Oranges, I think. I like oranges.
Jackson Jr. saw his playing time ramped up to 31 minutes last time out and now stands out as one of the highest owned players of the day. So Eric, how do you feel about him and the rest of the Grizzlies? And does anything else stick out to you on this game from a betting perspective?
So I think that this is literally going to be, like, for me, Jonas Valanciunas is going to be my yesterday's Russell Westbrook, where we've seen these minutes trend up so meaningfully. And I know Jaren Jackson getting up to like 31 minutes, and he's going to cut in a little bit to his production, but J-Val is just a fantasy monster. 1.33 fantasy points per minute on FanDuel for the season. I think at the center position, he's coming in as the highest owned, and he should be much higher than what he is. I think it's not too difficult to be building with him, Steph Curry, who we'll get to. And then you can even fit in another one of those Lakers pieces, one of the studs there. And it's not terribly difficult to do on FanDuel because of the way that the positionality works out, because of the way that the salaries work out. So J-Val is a guy that I really want to have a lot of exposure to. I'm taking the over on a lot of his props going down the line, going over to OddsShopper and looking at some of the player props. If you just group it based on points, J-Val is a guy that right now you're not really wanting to be taking the overs on by any means. So he's not necessarily going to be the prop guy. It's definitely going to be Jaren Jackson for me there, who we talked about. 72% expected win percentage, over 14.5 points. Again, 31 minutes. If we see 33, 34, which I think he's capable of now, as he's been ramped up the last 2 weeks coming back from a long injury hiatus, I really like Jaren Jackson in DFS, but specifically bet that over on points over at any number of the books that are showing up on OddsShopper, excuse me.
I feel like overall Memphis looks pretty good. I would say maybe not quite as good as San Antonio, where we sort of know the guys who are going to be a part of that San Antonio Spurs attack are going to have a lot of upside. Whereas for Memphis, you can see the crazy Jonas Valanciunas 15-15 day. You can see the Dylan Brooks shooting the lights out day. You could see a lot of outcomes here for the Grizzlies that I think could end well for them, and or just really just have good fantasy results. So I think that's part of it for me, where you're sort of going to have to spread your guys around a little bit more with the Grizzlies than you would for San Antonio. But overall, I think this game overall is going to look a lot more appealing on paper than the Golden State and Lakers game. It's a much bigger spread going towards San Antonio and Memphis with a 225 combined total compared to just a 218.51 in the second game. So I think loading up on this game, stacking this game too, is an approach that makes sense. And I think on that same token as well, kind of like what Eric was talking about earlier, I think people will also want to stack this game more. So maybe taking less pieces could be a way to get different in some portion of tournament lineups today, where there's a chance, one of the Spurs or the Grizzlies run away with it. I think that's not what Vegas is expecting, but that is an outcome that can occur. So that to me is one way that I think you can play it to try to get difference to your DFS lineups. But I think overall, I would just take the Spurs to win. I think the money line of that looks the most appealing part in terms of the betting side.
The Warriors and Lakers are this evening's main course, and for good reason. Eric, this run sheet is making me hungry. Steph Curry could easily be the highest owned spend up on the slate. What are your expectations for him, and would you prefer to be over or under his 50% ownership on both sites, Spags?
So I think to me, I will be with the field on Steph Curry, which I know is sort of an indecisive way to handle it. But I do think just based on how the salary structures work and all of that. And I think kind of like we saw yesterday with Russell Westbrook on a slate where Jason Tatum ended up having more raw fantasy points overall. You also saw some of the other guys be in range of Westbrook enough where he didn't end up a necessary piece. So I think that to me is how I'm viewing Steph today, where the usage has been great with him in games without Kelly Oubre and without James Wiseman on the floor. He's up to a 38% usage rate in that core time. We've also seen Steph shooting upwards of 23 pointers in a game recently in some of these do or die spots. I think that's sort of what you could expect to see today, barring the Lakers just completely clamping down on him and not allowing him to get those shots off. And even then, you're still probably looking at 12 to 15 three-point attempts. So either way, I think Steph is a very strong play, but he's one to me that because of how the tournaments work and because you need to get some different looks in your builds from what the field's going to have, and just keeping him at 50 to 60% max to me seems like the right move for DFS.
Yeah, I still think I'm gonna be overweight to the field for sure. Since you lost Kelly Oubre, 1.6 DraftKings points per minute. And that was on April 26th is the last time that Kelly Oubre played. So since April 27th, 38.1% usage for Steph Curry, averaging well north of 12 3-point shot attempts per game on DraftKings. He just really, really sticks out. I think FanDuel, because of Ja Morant and DeJounte Murray existing at the position, and you don't get that little extra bonus for 3-pointers, I think that there is maybe a path where I might be a little bit lighter on FanDuel, but 10-4 is still too cheap for his role for a game where I think he's going to be playing closer to 40 minutes than not. And he's going to be the reason that they're competitive or not in this game. So I'm happy to ride or die with him going forward on this slate. And I don't think that that should be surprising anybody. It's the rest of the Warriors that are really difficult for me to get a gauge on what I want to do here. It's going to come down to a lot of ownership, but Kevon Looney, I know he's super cheap, just not super effective. Maybe at 3,800, he can sneak his way into the optimal. Draymond Green really sticks out to me where you have to play 2 power forwards on FanDuel, or his price tag 7,400 is too cheap for the triple double upside he has. I've been assisting the ball at a much higher clip with Steph Curry on the floor this season. That shouldn't really surprise anybody. So I'm going to get a smattering of them, but really Steph Curry is the priority, and that's, not a hot take.
This wasn't in the run sheet, but did you guys see that LeBron was partying with Drake last night? And does that affect the way you're going to bet and play this game tonight?
What?
I would say the Vegas total probably accounts for that. It's what we have to assume for the most part as part of our process. But a bit of a weird, I guess Drake doesn't really have a dog in the race this year with Toronto not being in the playoffs. So now he can go back to his usual bandwagon days. And the Lakers are one of the top odds gators, as we talked about on here and seen on OddsShopper.com. So I would say that, I get it. And I think it's fine. The Lakers, I think, have overall taken the season a little bit lightly. And that's probably just more proof of that.
Well,
I mean, was he like drinking, or was he just like showing up at a party and like
they were kissing passionately? It was that's the curveball.
Oh, okay, got it.
What is he going to be too stirred up by the love that he feels in his heart for Drake now would be the question I have. And I'm going to say no. LeBron's a professional. He knows to leave that off the court.
Well, I'll have to call him on my cell phone at late night when I need my love, but it's fine.
Gosh. Anyway, all right. The Lakers are the huge question mark on this slate, as the health of LeBron James and Anthony Davis could be in flux. That's funny. What is your outlook for them tonight? And are there any other pieces from this team you are strongly considering, Eric?
I'm going down this rabbit hole. What was LeBron James doing at a tequila party on Lobos 1070?
That's what everyone wants to know.
The night before this game, Skip Bayless seeing LeBron James party. This is hilarious. I just went down the Twitter rabbit hole, and I don't know if I can come out. I can't believe that he went and did that the night before. That's very strange. But also, this is LeBron James we're talking about here. I mean, he moved to LA for a reason. He has his producing company. He's got all the parties in the world. He can do whatever he wants. He's LeBron James. God, I mean, you got to be playing him still. I'm assuming that ankle's nice. And like, if he's going out and walking around at a tequila party with Drake and doing whatever, like that ankle's got to be good enough. 1.4 FanDuel points per minute on the season. It's LeBron James. You should be playing him on FanDuel specifically, where you have to be playing 2 small forwards. DraftKings is kind of the interesting question. He's coming in with about appropriate ownership, it looks like, but I don't know what those minutes are going to look like. I'm assuming he's going to be able to push it as much as he wants, but this isn't necessarily even a do or die game. They are favorites already. Anthony Davis has been carrying this team for the last couple of weeks anyway. He's going to be the guy who's really kind of meaningful to go out and put the foot down. I think Anthony Davis on DraftKings, where he's coming a little bit lower owned because of that inflated price tag. I think 10-2 still not too bad for me over there. On FanDuel, like LeBron James is at that small forward position. That helps. Jaren Jackson Jr. and Anthony Davis and Draymond Green, you can kind of mix and match those 3, but you got to be saving salary somewhere. Maybe not power forward being the position to do it, but I really like Anthony Davis more as a priority. I think the minutes could be a little bit higher for him.
I'm kind of a little bit down on these guys, even the Drake parts aside for all of it, where I think to me, they project to be a little bit over-owned. I think the boom bust tool also backs it out, at least on DraftKings. And I it's going to be a different game than it was in the regular season, where we're not choosing between, 8 to 15 teams right now, or, however many amount that would be. But you're still choosing, a lot less guys here, so that you're going to have guys who pop in the optimal more, even guys who might not necessarily have the highest upside. I just find it hard to believe that Steph isn't going to have more upside than both LeBron and AD. And the ceiling is higher. I think the floor, I would say at this point, with how good he's been, as Eric was talking about, with Oubre off the floor all year, you might say the floor is comparably high for Steph as well. And I think to me, that does make LeBron and AD very interesting tournament plays, but they're being owned like their core foundational pieces. And I'm not quite sold that's the case. I still think you have, guys like Dennis Schroder in the mix. You still have Andre Drummond in the mix. You still have people who can sort of take possessions away in a way that I don't think Steph has. So that's something that's important to me today. But playing LeBron, I think under the field is, and as well as AD, I think is going to be a move that I just want to do today, because they're going to kind of cut away at each other's production. And I do think it wouldn't shock me to see these guys lose today. And I think whoever, like, both teams are going to get in. I think whoever's left from the Spurs and Grizzlies, I don't think they have much of a chance either way. But I do think in this spot, if the Lakers losing this game and phoning it in and not taking it seriously, even though they clearly should have all year long, I think would be sort of a fitting punishment here for them to figure out before next game.
So what are you going to do to kind of combat that? Because right now, I think you're dead on to something there with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Andre Drummond. They've only spent 74 minutes on a court together all year long. It kind of affects, LeBron James has a 30% usage rate. Anthony Davis sitting at 18%. So Andre Drummond has a 25.5% usage there. Going across to like the rebounding rate, that's really what I'm concerned about, like in terms of their upside. Like LeBron and AD, you're kind of like hoping for double-double. You're hoping for like a 25 and 10 or 30 and 10 kind of an outcome. And I think Andre Drummond, if he's going to be playing even 24 minutes here on the floor, 26, I'm not sure how far they're going to push him. It seems like Marc Gasol has become the de facto number 2 center, but like, who else are you going to be going to on this slate? Because we do have a couple pieces of value. Obviously, you talked about the Spurs being at deflated tags, but who are you kind of making priorities other than LeBron and AD on this slate?
I think to me, it's more being willing to get Steph a good amount and then just being willing to take less of LeBron and AD, where, right now we have them projected LeBron at 30%, AD a little bit less, as you were mentioning on DraftKings. And to me, I think coming in at 25 and 25 for them just seems like a move that just feels a little more logical to me. And then maybe coming up a bit more on Drummond, who's at 20%. Though that one, I don't have the most confidence in. I candidly, I haven't gone on Fantasy Cruncher yet and optimized fully yet. But I think to me, loading up on the first game and then just taking some of the core pieces from this game is sort of the way that I look at it, because on paper, no Lakers really project that well for me, which can be something interesting for tournaments. But I think for how I'm playing things for the most part, where I'm going to see if the field can maybe beat themselves a little bit more than they did yesterday, or I guess like I beat myself yesterday, we did with Bismack Biyombo. I would say today.
Thanks for throwing me in the middle. That was great. Yeah.
Well, it's a week. It's screwed up. We could share.
This is true. Yeah.
But I would say today, to me, the Lakers don't look the most appealing, and I'm okay just not playing a ton of them and just sort of getting them sprinkled in. And I wouldn't hate the idea of just playing max one Laker today, just because I think there's a lot more opportunity to go around in some of the other teams and any other game in particular.
Here's a question for you guys. What's been more detrimental to the NBA, the Drake curse or the Kardashian curse?
I don't know that there's been a Kardashian curse so much, because like even Tristan Thompson's continued to have a good career. Blake
Lamar
has
Odom.
That's
he's
one
5
guy.
years sober. I saw. Good for him.
Oh,
he was
that's
crushing.
good.
Yeah,
That's very
I
good
saw
news.
that he was talking about pill addiction, and he's been a good advocate, it sounds like, for that community. So good on Lamar Odom for making good on some stuff. And then also the Kardashian or the Drake curse. Toronto Raptors won an NBA championship, and that's like the only team in Canada. So
did he break it then? Did that end the Drake?
That had to end the Drake curse at this point in time. And him and Steph Curry went and got in and out was it like a year ago, 2 years ago, and Steph Curry put up like 50 or something. Like I don't know if the Drake curse can necessarily be a thing. What was it beforehand? I'm not even sure.
I think it was just that he was bandwagoning a bunch of teams.
When he wears that team's logo or whatever, that team would then lose.
Okay. Yeah, I think the Raptors probably broke it.
Yeah, law of averages.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I would say, though, the one with Lamar Odom, and one thing that I did see recently was that he's doing a celebrity boxing show that's now coming back into vogue because some of those Triller events selling so well. And I did see Lamar Odom as the main event. I forget against who, but it's against some other not the most impressive celebrity. But that one's coming up in June. So maybe if they get some odds in the books, honestly, might end up being covered on the tip-off here, given our need to fill content.
Okay.
Well, Negro Loco in the chat also brought up Chris Humphries. I completely forgot about him.
Oh,
that one counts.
Humphries.
That is definitely a strike. That was the pride of Minnesota.
Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush.
Lamar Odom is fighting Aaron Carter. Sorry, this is important. So that's a big one. That's Lamar Odom versus
Hold
Aaron
up,
Carter.
Who's
Does not
fighting
seem
Aaron
like
Carter?
one
no.
Aaron Carter should win would be what I think. But what are the odds? Would be my big question.
Wait, Aaron Carter's fighting who?
Lamar Odom.
That's a lie.
That
is what's scheduled. It was a.
How are they in the same weight
What's happening
class
to the
and
fighting
reach?
world and people thinking that they can just go in rings and fight people?
There's actually a TMZ article from today with video. Aaron Carter dropped by body shot in prep for Lamar Odom fight video shows. So he's getting knocked down in sparring, which normally doesn't bode the best for you as a boxing prospect.
I used to have a huge crush on Aaron Carter.
Well, now's the time. Buy while the stock's low. Buy the dip.
He's changed a lot since he was.
Don't buy the dip in anything else right now except for Aaron Carter, apparently. Oh Lord, what a day! What a day!
Woo! Just trying to, get some pop culture in here too.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Check out Side Action. Kayla's been putting out videos like crazy.
Thanks,
Let's
Eric.
plug it. Plug it. Let's get those views up. Come on now. The lady is working till 2, 3 a.m. a lot of nights. People don't know. We put the run sheet together because she's got other things to do as well. And Chris and I get to gallivant talking about sports, doing all the things, and she plays along coyly. So definitely check out all of her stuff on Side Action too. Give her some love.
Eric, that was so nice. Thank you.
You're so welcome. That's all I got for you. I still, whatever. We're talking sports now.
All right. Yes, we are. Buckle up. Here's the longest ad read you'll ever hear. New Awesemo Plus users. With nearly every DFS sport in season in the NBA and NHL heading into the playoffs, it's a great time to be a DFS player. Pick up your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum for 25% off when you use promo code GOLDRUSH. That's promo code GOLDRUSH, one word, all caps. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much more. This offer is valid through May 20th. And with the NBA playoffs here, that also means it's NBA Showdown season. The great news about this is that our NBA Express Pass gives you free access to all our tools for NBA Showdown and single game, including player projections and ownership projections. Our weekly NBA Express Pass is only $4.95, but when you sign up with promo code PLAYIN, that's play-in, you will get an extra week of NBA Express completely free. So 2 whole weeks of NBA Express for just $4.95. This pass will also give you access to lineup builder, ownership rankings, and big board player values for all slates. This is your pass, Awesemo Plus Pass for NBA playoff action, so use promo code PLAYIN at checkout today. This offer is again this one is valid through May 21st. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. That'll take us into the MLB for Biggest Bet. It's time to head to the diamond for some of the top bets and plays on tonight's MLB DFS slate. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you guys think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? We've got Devers plus 300, Soto plus 300, Hernandez plus 310, Aaron Judge plus 320, and Adam Duvall plus 325. Spags, let's start with you.
So actually on the Deeper Dive show right before this one, which was a half hour earlier than usual, or I guess this is a half hour later than usual, which threw me for a loop today. But thankfully, I've collected myself enough to return to the MLB field. And I feel like I did pick a different Red Sox player, but the net really of me with Boston today going against Ross Stripling in Toronto's park, which is really played like a minor league park, like a little league park, whatever comparison you want to make here. This Sox team today for DFS is too underowned, but also they're just underrepresented in everything. And I do think my preferred play would be JD Martinez out of the Red Sox grouping, but I have no issue going to Devers. I have no issue going to Xander Bogaerts for a home run prop. I think all those look good. And the guy who's on the board here is going to be Devers, clearly a leading odds getter at plus 300 for good reason. But going against Ross Stripling, he's been very bad this year. Has been bad historically, but giving up a 310 batting average so far this year, and also giving up a launch angle, a 19-degree launch angle. It's going to be pretty perfect for the ball flying around in a major way here. And I think somebody like Devers could take advantage of that. So he would be my pick here, even though JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, all these guys are very strong home run props and DFS plays today.
Yeah, I'm going to go Aaron Judge. Then I'll go against a lefty there in Texas. Last year and a half, 328 ISO. It's Aaron Judge. It's really hard, for me to want to be paying 50. Like, he makes for a good one-off. He makes at 5,900 on DK, just a contrarian spend up on things. We'll see kind of what that Yankees ownership comes in at. I haven't built any baseball lineups yet, but Aaron Judge jumps to the top of my, I like Gundacker's bomb detector. I think that's a fun way of looking at it, but looking at my sheet, Aaron Judge kind of stands out above the rest. So I'm getting a little bit longer odds on him. And then a guy who's not even on the board that we didn't even talk about, but I just want to talk about how smart I feel about this one guy for 1 second, because I don't get to talk baseball that much, but Mitch Haniger has just been in fuego starting off this season. 2 years ago, or last year was basically a lost season for him, just battling injury constantly. He's just looking like the old Mitch Haniger from 3 years ago. And it's fun to see him with a 353 ISO, 588 slugging. He plays for the Seattle team coming off of their, second no-hitter this entire season. But now Scooble isn't going to be a guy that I'm going to shy away from. So Mitch Haniger, throw a bet on him too. That's the one I'm really liking today.
And now for biggest arm, which of these top 4 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? And is there a good under bet that you like? We've got Max Scherzer, 8.5 strikeouts, Ohtani, 8.5, Means 7.5, and Flaherty, 6.5. Eric.
I think I just want Chris to guess who I'm going to pick.
I think it has to be Ohtani.
It's got to be Ohtani. I'm such a mark for this guy. I think Shohei Ohtani is like my favorite thing to enter baseball. Well, Byron Buxton's hurt, so I have to cry my tears and whatever else. But Ohtani is like maybe my favorite. Like I'd say he's a top 3 athlete for me on planet Earth right now. I absolutely love this guy. And, he has some of the best strikeout stuff coming through, leading the league in homers now. Just he makes no sense. It's absurd that the Angels are going to have him. Mike Trout's hurt, unfortunately, but Mike Trout, they're basically just wasting away both of them on this team that just has nobody else, no starting pitching, no bullpen. Their bullpen is just so atrocious. Like it makes me so sad that the Angels aren't going to be competitive here because of just how bad some of those guys are going forward. But Ohtani just single-handedly going to try to win them a bunch of games, and he is more than capable of doing it both in the box and on the mound, and it's just absurd to watch him. So I'm going to continue to be writing the props on the overs on him. He's 7,400 against this Cleveland team. Just sign me up for all of it.
Yeah, I think Alex had some concerns in the deeper dive about Ohtani's ability to stay deep enough into games to get the results. And I think to me, you may be paying a little bit of a price tag on just some of the buzz around Ohtani. It's hard to ignore it. I know MLB Cut 4, I follow that handle, which is a fun social handle to follow. And one of the people I know as one of the content creators behind it. And they were pointing out like Ohtani's jacked to the gills the other day. Like he pulled one pitch where he's a lefty hitter and he pulled it like on the inside in a way that like nobody else could have hit. And they paired it in a meme of showing off Ohtani and those guns. And those guns are playing well as a hitter and as a pitcher right now. The strikeout rate for him, not as good as anybody on the slate, a 38% K rate, but he's facing a Cleveland team that doesn't strike out a lot. And I think that's something that one of the other guys on the board does have going in his favor. John Means, another illustrious no-hitter thrower this year, but he's facing a Tampa Bay team that's striking out 32% of the time against lefties. And I think it is a little bit warmer in Baltimore today. So that gives you some concern, but Means' strikeout stuff has been really good. He's pitching deep into games too. And I think with Ohtani, that is the one risk that you can take on. So I have no issue with Ohtani overall, but I think John Means to me an underappreciated play today for DFS. And I think for a strikeout prop, another solid one as well.
God, he's made a jump this year, hasn't he? It's just crazy. He was giving up 2.47 home runs per 9 and kind of just single-handedly fixed his home run problem this year. So yeah, fire up John Means. Love that call.
Spags, this is neither here nor there, but if DFS doesn't work out for you, then I think you have a career in being a weatherman.
Weather, I've heard auctioneer as well from Talking Fast. I feel like there are a lot of things that go for me, but weather is one. I know like you can sort of learn weather, but I don't think like I don't want to speak ill of myself. I'm not good looking enough to be a TV weather guy or weather girl because they're always like so done up in a way that like there's no like cool backwards hat relatable weatherman. I guess that could be my angle. I just
that's
don't
your
know.
thing. That's you. Yeah.
Like
it's money time here in Southern San Diego. If you take a look over here. Oh, ching, ching, ching. There it is.
Honestly, a lot of the bits would port over pretty well, I feel like, to like the weatherman shtick and the DFS host shtick, probably not that far off.
There's some correlation for sure.
You just talk about weather all the time. You're always up on the weather. So.
It's important for baseball. It's actually the most. I know, Kayla, you're figuring out or you're hiding your baseball knowledge here, and part of this long con of yours to shark us into giving you money and on your MLB bets. But I would say that for the most part, weather heating up in baseball, the most crucial thing you guys will find, especially in June and July. Right now, it's sort of hit and miss with some of the parks, but weather for baseball is like, it's not even an edge. It's something people know, but the totals start going up when the weather goes up and sun's out, guns out, runs out. Huh? I think that's what we do.
Hey, that can be your tagline.
Exactly.
I was going to say St. Louis Cardinals, that humidity kicks up there at Busch. It is torture. That's the one thing I do not miss about the Midwest whatsoever. Like I kind of miss seasons now. I've been out here for 10 years. I'm starting to like get to the point where I'm like, I could use a fall or a spring here and there from now on. But oh man, the summer's actually kind of the one thing when I go back, I do not miss it.
Also,
it is tough.
Jordan just went off camera. What do we think he's doing right now? We think it's like at a level of inappropriateness. What do we think Jordan's doing?
Our producer has left the chat.
Let's do good dog, bad dog right now.
I feel like we just got left home alone without our parents.
Let's cut to something where he has to be important. Let's do good dog, bad dog right now.
Well, it's not time for that yet. And it's not good without the barks.
I know, I suppose.
Like Kayla makes me bark like a dog, and it stirs up all sorts of weird things for everybody involved.
True. Yeah.
Man,
I like to make it
two guys in a relationship on a show with Kayla. This is never good for us to make any of those kind of jokes. Melanie always she'll bring it up afterwards because she can hear everything going on out there or whatever. And she's like, I think you're flirting today. And I'm like, yeah, no, totally was. I apologize. I love you though.
Well, because she hears our banter and that. Oh, you meant with Kayla. Gotcha.
You guys are
and then she's like, why you were on a show with Chris this time though? It was just you and Chris on Live Before Lock. And I'm like, well, it's the same thing.
Classic will they, won't they scenario.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Star-crossed lovers living across Los Angeles. There we go.
You too. I can't. All right, let's head to No House Advantage prop or not. Back to the NBA. Here are some of No House Advantage's props of the day for NBA key players. Do you guys like the over or under on them, and how many points would you assign? I just realized we're not even gonna have the graphics here because is he still there? Is he still moving around? I guess
he's there. He's there. We just
can't see him. This is so weird.
He's
so thrown. Okay.
He's doing it with his mind.
Wow. Okay. First up, we have DeJounte Murray, 5.5 rebounds, Spags.
DeJounte Murray, to me, one of those players that I like a lot today. I do have some concern in this matchup that it is really the one thing that Memphis you can sort of pencil them in for is they're going to grab a lot of rebounds of the dudes that they have in tow. But Murray, I think playing more minutes, he's going to stumble into a few more rebounds. And then you also have, I think, the likelihood here of Pirtle trying to do his best to keep Jonas Valanciunas off the boards, and that opens up a few more up. So this one, to me, I didn't even look at the odds from Awesemo today, but I do think this is one of the stronger overs. And I feel like, to me, probably a 7-pointer.
Yeah, so this definitely goes up to one of the better ones on the board for sure, taking the over for DeJounte Murray. The one thing that I think has to be talked about that I didn't necessarily bring up with some of the props yesterday is that we're going to see a minutes bump for all of these starters going across the line. And a lot of the props on NHA are basically factored in as if it's a regular season game, as if it's their regular role. And now if you go over to the prop market, if you put it back and forth with OddsShopper and you're looking at both of them there, like the 5.5 number is a number that would be very, very applicable if he was playing 32 minutes or 33 minutes. Well, this could be up to 40. It's a do or die game. And Greg Popovich is no James Borrego, who's going to go out and do stupid stuff and do stupid things that lose us money and make me sad and upset. Although it makes for better TV, I suppose, but whatever. I really like taking the over on DeJounte Murray and a lot of these other Spurs, both in DFS and in the prop market.
All right, Eric, next we've got Kyle Kuzma, 5.5 rebounds.
I think it's fun because we have 5.5 rebounds over for him. And I think 5.5 for Kuzma is definitely an under. Look at all the guys that are going to be on the floor when Kuzma's on the floor. You've got Andre Drummond. We know the kind of fantasy point per minute guy, the rebounding rate that he can have on the floor. You have Anthony Davis, another tower out there, another gigantic rebounding rate. And you have LeBron James, who, gets rebounds and starts the fast break. Those are three phenomenal rebounders. Not to mention you have guys like KCP, who are going to be, who are capable of spiking some rebound upside. And some of these other wings like Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell, if he were to actually play, I don't even know. That would be the crazy part for me. But those three specifically, Drummond, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, I don't know where Kuzma gets to 6 rebounds. Like, I just don't see it here. So give me the under for sure.
Yeah, I think this one looks like one of the stronger unders according to Awesemo. And I actually have Kuzma for a little bit more rebounds, but still safely under with 4.5 rebounds projected for him. And I agree with everything that Eric is saying there. Like, there's too many guys in the mix now for this team that are just going to take production away from Kuzma in a variety of ways. And it makes him an interesting GPP tournament play for DFS, but for a site like No House Advantage, where the prop line just sort of doesn't reflect what the situation is likely to be for Kuzma, which is that I don't even know, like, his minutes seem really insecure in the rotation. I guess you give him mid-20s, but it seems unlikely he's going to get to the 30s or even mid-30s. Like a lot of these guys are. It's just not a great situation for Kuzma, and he just is competing now with AD for rebounds. All the guys that Eric just mentioned, there's too many bodies there who are capable of grabbing rebounds, and that was one of Kuzma's little hidden values that he had for himself. So I think the under here looks very strong, and I think too, you could play him for DFS, but don't expect him to get there in rebounds. He's probably going to get there just from jacking it up in whatever amount of court time he gets.
And finally, we've got Steph Curry, 5.5 3-pointers made, Spags.
This is one where I would just take the over. We talked about it earlier, where I do think there are some ways the Lakers will try to limit what Steph Curry does, but the pathway for the Warriors winning this game is Steph Curry shooting a lot and shooting up a lot of attempts from three in particular is going to be the main thing. And that's something he has done, as we talked about earlier in the show, where he's shot 20, 25 3-point attempts in some of the games recently. That's what they are choosing to do in the games that matter. And I have some concern the Lakers defense is going to be a little bit better than some of what they saw down the stretch, but not enough to jump off Steph right now. So I would take the over, but I think this is one that maybe, I don't know that I'd have the same confidence level in the rebound overs and unders that we just talked about.
Yeah, this is kind of a stay away. I think you're going to be invested in Steph Curry enough around the entire industry, and 5.5 is a very strong line. I think if I were to take a side of it, I think I would be taking a little bit of the over. I think you could see that usage rate really spike up over 38%. It's not like Lakers can really he's matchup proof, and the Lakers are a phenomenal defensive team, but Steph Curry is going to get his shot attempts. If they're going to win this game, he is going to be one of the large reasons why. I can't see Wiggins really asserting himself enough to be the guy who's a difference maker for the win or the loss if Steph Curry has an off night. Like, Steph Curry needs to go nuts. And so I'd lean on the over, but probably just to stay away here. It's not like you won't have any Steph Curry in DFS.
All right. That's going to do it for NHA. Don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. Ooh, now we're going to get into some PGA Championship action. Considering we have our resident golfer on today's panel, I would be remiss not to ask him about the upcoming PGA Championship this weekend. Eric, give us a quick rundown on the tournament, and are there any players or bets you'd like to tease before lock tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick plug. Ben Raza and Jason will actually also be on the show today. So Jason Rosalind as well. We'll have the three of us. We'll be talking all things PGA Championship. We have a Millie Maker for the major this weekend. We have a bunch of gigantic tournaments across the industry. So check it out. But Kiowa Island, the ocean course.
Looks
if you want to talk
gorgeous.
about it is beautiful out there. So another Pete Dye design. It's playing at 7,876. They're going to actually probably make it a little bit shorter than that. It looks like there's going to be a lot of wind, but really look at driving distance. Look at a couple of these guys that are capable of just being really strong off the tee, being really strong ball strikers, because man, it is going to play very, very difficult. You have 9 holes that are going to basically be playing downwind, it looks like, just with kind of the way that the players are talking about the wind direction and what it's supposed to be. And then you're going to have 9 that are going right back into the teeth of it. And it is going to play very, very difficult if that wind pops up. Looking a little bit ahead at the forecast, this might be a tournament similar more to an Open Championship where you're able to stack tee times. So for those of you who are just kind of like throwing a couple Millie Maker lineups in, look at the tee time sheets. You can go to the PGAtour.com. You can look at it on Fantasy Cruncher. It's going to have the round ones that sit directly there. Try to have maybe 4 or 5 of your golfers sometimes sitting in that Thursday in the Thursday afternoon window, because it looks like the wind's only going to get up to about 12, 13 miles an hour. And we're still 24 hours away. So I can kind of tell that the Thursday wind isn't going to get as crazy, but Friday, it's looking like 17 miles an hour with gusts up to 25 in the afternoon. So I think teeing off Thursday morning and playing Friday afternoon is a little bit of a disadvantage, a little bit of a downgrade. Kind of look at some of the players. So if you're torn between 2 players, look at their tee time draw, maybe try to stack it a little bit of that way. We've seen a couple tournaments, actually like 1 or 2 already this year, that have had a discernible win to draw. And so I think that we could be looking at the same kind of situation here and really kind of take advantage of that. But if you're looking for one long shot, because I know everybody likes to play long shots and hit on something, there's a guy in Stewart Cink that I'm betting across the board and in each way. So I'm basically taking him as a winner, top 5, top 10, top 20. But I really like him at 150-1. There was a Pete Dye tournament. They played on a golf course over at the RBC Heritage, and he ended up winning that earlier this year. He's had 3 top 20s in his last 4 events. His putter's really hot, been ball striking well. If he can just get off the tee a little bit better than average, he's actually been hitting it just around 310. So he's gained a little bit of distance over the course of the last 3 months, over the course of his last 6 tournaments. Try investing at him at a 150-1 number across the board at a number of different sports books. And if you're looking for some stuff to bet later on, check us out on Live Before Lock at 8 p.m. Eastern Times, 5 p.m. Pacific.
Wow, Wow, that was very thorough and precise. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Speaking of weatherman, look at you.
Well, I mean, I want to be as pretty as Spags when I grow up, but I'm working on it.
You're pretty inside. That's what we always say about you.
I'm just a delicate little flower living my Los Angeles life, doing yoga, having puppies in my life, whatever. That was a weird sentence. I'm going to move on.
Actually, fun fact, my dad was
Spags doesn't know what to do with me at this point. Spags like, who's this guy that I'm forced to do shows with who just like, he says he's not sensitive. He's actually sensitive. He's joking around, but at least you know that I'm consistent. I'm always happy every day.
I miss the guitar, honestly, is what I miss. I feel like we need to fill some time here. So Kayla, please tell us anecdotes from your time, your father's time as a meteorologist.
My fun fact that got interrupted. It's fine. No, my dad was a weatherman before I was born. That's all I had.
Wait, so is that like, oh, because you said that I should be a weatherman. So are you giving some sort of weird thing here? Are you putting out some we're getting daddy vibes? I don't want to, I don't know if we want to sit on the couch here, to be clear, not the casting couch that Eric has previously deployed in his time, but the therapy couch.
Bringing up
we always get ourselves in trouble when we have to fill time. Shoot. All right. Yeah. Well, not touching that one.
You should. I bet you want to. That's weird. See, you can't say that. That's not nice. Oh, she's laughing. Okay. We're having fun. We're
always having fun.
Spags making it weird. Hell yeah. That's part of the fun. You got to make it a little uncomfortable. It's Wednesday afternoon. We're trying to get things started here.
Trying to get everyone through their weeks.
I mean, honestly, I think for us, anytime that fills 2 or 3 minutes on these shows, sometimes just got to throw it out there and hope you get to the finish line.
Sometimes it ends up being some of our best stuff.
That's true. Some could say.
Probably not today's though. All right.
You can't win them all, kids. You can't win them all.
Let's head over to good dog, bad dog. I have no idea if we're gonna get sound.
Oh, there we go.
It is so bizarre. We cannot see Jordan, but he's there. It's like God.
Jordan's just fully nude hitting sound effects boards. You don't want to know how, I think, is really the main thing. People say it HR on the line. Boy, if not, it's gonna be the Jordan part that results in HR is talking about him producing entirely with his extra appendages.
Oh no. All right. In real life, there is no such thing as a bad dog. In betting in DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight and who's a bad one? Spags. Don't tell your good dog so you stop talking about other things.
No, we should keep talking about other things.
Oh my God.
This is fun. Chat's having fun. Kayla's enjoying this. No, she's not. That's part of the fun. Literally part of it is that everybody has to have their day where it's like, oh man, I feel strange getting off the air here at this point in time. This is going to be Kayla's.
Shower.
Yeah,
all right.
That's where I thrive. And I would say that for me, here's the tough part is that I like both dogs today in the NBA games. But I do think out of the team that has the better chance or the more likely chance to win, I think it's San Antonio. So I like the money line bets for both. I do think that there's a chance here that both teams can steal these ones on the road. But San Antonio, I think them coming together as a team that should have the better coach. Taylor Jenkins has done a great job with Memphis, but I do think Pop is sort of hard and to ignore. It should be in his own tier. So I say, them stealing this one against Memphis in a game that should be high scoring. And there's a lot of ways that DeMar DeRozan and DeJounte Murray can go off and really pull this one in a big way. So I think they can win this one. They're my good dog.
Yeah, not only that, but I'm willing to put some money line money on them. It's Greg Popovich in a one game sample size in a playoff scenario where everybody's going to be playing full minutes and he gets to game plan for it. I feel pretty good about that. And as you said, Memphis has really played pretty darn well. Probably just even making it to this play-in game whatsoever is probably a win with how stacked the West is. But I like definitely taking the Popovich side of it. DeMar DeRozan can go out and get things done. Jakob Poeltl's very underrated, I believe, just from a real-life basketball perspective. I like J Val. I like Jaren Jackson. I like John Morant for DFS purposes as well, and I'll sprinkle them in. But definitely like the money line bet on the Spurs as well.
Eric, who are you sprinkling in for your bad dog?
Who am I sprinkling in? Well, I like sprinkles. The Sprinkles cupcakes, by the way, Los Angeles. Oh, fire, pure fire. The ice cream especially, but I missed that. That was the good old Rodeo Drive back in the day, but I digress. Not really looking at like a bad dog. I would say the Warriors probably a bad dog. We're looking at LeBron James and Anthony Davis on a floor, and as much as I love Steph Curry from a DFS perspective, Yeah, I know I have my questions about their health, but still pretty big favorites here. And I don't really want to be touching this game. It's going to be so fun to watch. And I really am cheering for the Warriors to be competitive, but probably more like less a bad dog and more of just a stay away for me this game entirely from a betting perspective.
My bad dog is actually going to eat my literal dog who's right next to me. And I've been trying to keep
can we see it
here because
let's see the pup.
Come here.
Callie's trying to escape right now, but she's not supposed to be out of eyesight because my girlfriend's gone. And then here she.
Who is that?
That's Callie.
Hi, Callie.
Yes,
your dog is awesome.
She is due for an allergy shot and she's trying to walk away. So she's the first bad dog. My second bad dog will be the Detroit Tigers, 3.6 implied runs against Logan Gilbert. Logan Gilbert's been a strong strikeout pitcher from what we've seen so far in the majors. In the minors is also one. So he is a better dog than my actual dog today. And the Tigers themselves are the bad dog. I think Logan Gilbert's one of the best DFS plays on the day.
Dude, that dog is so cute. Callie?
Yes, that is Callie. She's adorable. She was named when I was in New York, so her name was less stupid then, but named for my time in California when I was back in New York. And here, honestly, she can just finish the show. She doesn't seem to want to sit in a comfortable position for both of us. But
is she a lab?
She is a lab. She's a full yellow lab.
Oh, sweet.
Spags, whole new respect. Also, now we need to hang out. I didn't want to hang out before. But
oh yeah, you were the one who was really making it difficult.
I hate you. I hate you. You're dumb.
Hey,
your dog's
guys,
not.
Am I invited to this or?
I mean, I guess with supervision to make sure that you're on the up and up. I think, given all the inappropriate comments you make on the tip off, Kayla.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Until you watch What We Do in the Shadows, you cannot hang out. You cannot, because we'll be quoting it the whole time.
See you never.
Oh, dude, look at this. This is the cutest. Oh.
Also, Larry Jones saying weighs more than Spags. I am like peak quarantine fat right now, and this is a 65-pound dog. So I don't know what you think is going on, unless I just don't have a lower half. But that's a question.
I will take the dog over my guitar any day. That is for sure. This is definitely a better segment that we have invented now. We're going to have Callie time, I think.
Yes. Full of new segments. You never know what you're going to get on the show each and every day.
Oh.
All right. Let's keep it moving. We've got make or break. Which player or game currently looks like a make or break spot to you on tonight's slate, Spags and Callie?
I would say our make or break spot would probably be the San Antonio Spurs. Oh, come on. Can you just help out with a bit for a second? The San Antonio Spurs will be my make or break. I am a big believer in them. They're going to be chalky as hell on DFS sites. And if so help me God, if they are the Marcus Smart and Evan Fournier of tonight's slate, then you will be seeing Callie on the auction block at ebay.com on the dog section, which I presume is not a thing. But if it is, boy, they should take a look at that. That shouldn't be allowed.
Callie sounds a lot like Eric.
Oh, hey, it's me, Callie. Play all the chalk plays, everyone. They all look great today.
He's not amused. All right. Eric, your turn.
I don't want to do this anymore. This is my work day. This is like my work environment. This is, just okay. Make or break San Antonio Spurs as well. Steph Curry probably going to be over the field. Anthony Davis, I'm going to have more of than LeBron, and Jonas Valanciunas, my favorite dude to be playing on this slate. Goodbye.
Whoa. All right. Fade of the day. You can't leave it yet because you have to give us your game player or team that you anticipate you'll have a lot less interest in than the rest of the public. Eric.
LeBron James.
Yeah, I would say for us, it's probably going to be both not having snacks and treats, and also would be the Anthony Davis LeBron crew there. I think just coming under them would be the move that even a dog can find out that you should probably play less Lakers today.
All
right. I can't be mad. Callie's too cute. It's fine. It's fine.
We love Callie. Final thought here. If the Lakers lose tonight, is it Drake's fault?
Sure. Everything can be Drake's fault.
Yeah, I'm willing to pass the buck to whomever. So if Drake wants to take the fall, sure, why not?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything you two want to plug before we leave today?
PGA Championship coming up, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Talking all the goodies leading up to the PGA Championship. Again, just massive contests across the industry. So check it out.
There's the return of my girlfriend. So I'm going to plug my dog's excitement over her existence, and also follow at Chris Spags and tune into all the great content we're going to have here on the Awesemo channel, because I'll be watching it while I make my NBA lineups as well. So that's my plug, as well as just being civil to each other out there and loving each other. Those things as well.
Eric, a rebuttal?
A rebuttal, as if I was being insulted there at the end of the show for whatever reason. Oh my God. No, we're done, Kayla. Also, this was a lot of fun, but also, come on, like, be better.
All right. This was a fun one, you guys. Thanks to Spags. Thanks to Eric. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. Never a dull moment. MLB Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock are coming your way next. NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock coming your way next. I'm Kayla Knierim. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the tip-off. Have a good one.
I'm covered in that.
You gotta wait the reveal. There it is. Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive. It's kind of bullshit, right? Because I thought when I said, hey, I will shave my face if Eric Lindquist shaves his eyebrows, I thought the guy was going to shave his eyebrows. Instead, here I am looking like I'm 13, and you've got Eric that just put this tiny little slit in the side of his eyebrow. I got the raw deal from all of this, and I had nothing to do with it. I'm just a good coworker, a good friend, and here I am looking like an idiot. Anyway, I'm Dave Loughran on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D, joined by Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoney. When you saw me, you couldn't stop laughing.
I could not stop laughing. Your natural looks 100% are way more ridiculous than Eric with sliced eyebrows.
Yeah, what can I say? You can't call me Davis Bertens anymore.
Yeah,
I dodged that bullet, huh?
I'm not sure it was worth it, but yeah.
Could be worse. I've seen a lot worse. I've seen a lot worse purely shaven faces, but this is the first time I've done this in like 10 years.
Yeah, so I think I normally do it like maybe like once a year, and it's always like for the first couple of days, I'm like, oh, it's nice. Like I should do this more often, and then I realize by the time it comes back, I'm never doing it.
Oh, there's nothing nice about it. It's highly uncomfortable. I don't like
really?
it.
I always think it feels good for the first like couple of days.
I guess but I don't even keep mine that long. So it's not really that big of a deal. You know what I mean? It's just to hide my face. And I've done a great job of that over the years, but here we are. Anyway, we got 2 games to break down and a lot to talk about for only these 2 games, because Draftkings decided, oddly enough, if you watch the strategy show this morning, Draftkings decided to just dump the prices, like straight crypto market the San Antonio Spurs today, Adam.
Yeah, and not even just them. Pricing today is just like way softer than it was yesterday. On the one hand, it's kind of nice. Like you don't have to dig into you don't have to roster quite as much of the Edmund Sumner type plays that we had yesterday. But DraftKings pricing today much softer than it was yesterday. Yeah,
it's really surprising to me. Now, yesterday it was tough to make any decent lineup, and the results for me were pretty evident in that. It didn't end well. Evan Fournier was terrible, absolutely awful. Davis Bertans, and don't ever compare me to that guy again. I'm better at basketball than he is. In all seriousness, Josh and I had a big conversation this morning about it, and he said, Davis Bertans is very good. He just doesn't have any space to knock down shots. Now, while a lot of that is true, maybe find ways to make shots and don't shoot 0 for 7 from beyond the arc in a big game.
He's also just been absolute dog shit this year.
What's that?
He's also just been terrible this year. I mean, at times, like he was having conditioning issues and he couldn't get into a rhythm and all of that. But at this point in the season, I mean, and I like Bertans, but like I hate the post game too, where he's just like, sometimes the shot doesn't fall. It's like that's the only reason you get paid to play basketball.
That's exactly right. So if your shots aren't falling, maybe you have to figure out ways to make your shots fall. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, rebound, play defense. Like you're not doing those things, so your shot needs to fall.
Right, because if he's out there and his shot's not falling, he's a massive liability.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like this is a guy that he's not a 3-and-D guy. He's a 3 guy. Like,
right.
They need to go in.
That's all he does. So I get what Josh is saying. Like he would be probably pretty solid on a team where he had more open shots. But like, if you rely only on wide open shots, this was kind of my point. If you're relying solely on getting wide open shots, should you be getting paid what you're paid? Or are there other guys that can get wide open shots and knock them down at a decent enough clip to be an asset if they don't have to play defense?
Right. And that was the thing. Like, if you go back to, like, if you look at the previous year with the Wizards, he wasn't getting open looks then. He was just knocking them down from, 6 feet behind the 3-point line, or he was knocking them down contested. That's why he's getting paid.
Yep. It's a crazy world right now in Washington. And well, I don't know. It was a rough night. Like, Charlotte was awful. We'll get into these games right now, but don't worry. We've got a couple of minutes here. Hit that thumbs up while you're jumping in. If you're just hopping into the room, all of it greatly appreciated. Even if it's just for me looking like an absolute asshole after shaving my face, show some love for that. If not for anything else, even if you hate the content, I'm assuming you don't. You're here and it's free, and I think it's pretty solid. Live Before Lock coming up after this. And hit that subscribe button as well. Also, you want to become a member? We got the badges, you got the emojis. We're also working on some other cool features for those of you that are YouTube members that don't take away from our premium subs over at Awesemo, because we're not trying to double dip here. There's no incentive, no reason to do that. But if you want to become a member, hit that join button down below and get the badge and a bunch of other things tossed in along the way. So Charlotte was terrible. That game was never competitive from the start. I think today's games could be a little bit more interesting. San Antonio and Memphis might not be the best game to watch, but I could see this being another close game, maybe pretty fun. And then Golden State and the Lakers, I'm actually very much looking forward to this game, because if Golden State stays close, it's because Curry drops 50 on the Lakers.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that game. I feel like people haven't noticed like how good Golden State is without Kelly Oubre and James Wiseman. Like, I was talking to a bartender the other night, and he, said something about the Lakers going to smash the Warriors. And I was like, this version of the Warriors is really, really good. I think it should be a very good game tonight. So definitely looking forward to watching that one just from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, me too. So let's dive into it and start it off with San Antonio and Memphis. Only 2 games, so we're spending a decent amount of time on all of these. Before we do that, though, we got 2 promos running right now, 2 really good ones. One of them, Play In. Said this morning, I am fed up with these promo names. Play-in is what you have to type to get it, or just go to awesemo.com/promos. Don't type anything. Whole lot easier. The reason it's Play In, because there's a ton of showdown contests with massive prize pools, and our Express NBA package, which is only $4.95 a week, gives you access to all of our showdown tools on top of a bunch of other content and tools for NBA that you can get on top of that. But what we're doing is you get the first week at $4.95, the second week entirely free. So 2 weeks of our Express Pass, including all of our showdown tools, all of our showdown content as well, for $4.95. We got great showdown tools. I'm not just talking about articles. Go and see for yourself. Awesemo.com/promos. And if you want to get in on the 25% off the entire month of Awesemo Plus, everything, basketball, baseball, hockey, with all of them playing right now, MMA, PGA, NASCAR, you name it, ownership, player projections, the boom bust tool, the lineup builder, the top stacks tool, everything. 25% off if you use the promo code GOLDRUSH, all one word, or go to awesemo.com/promos. All these tools built and used by Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, also known as the #1 ranked DFS player in the world. So check it out, awesemo.com/promos, and see if you like anything out there. I think we got 2 awesome ones running. They're only available for the next couple of days. So take advantage of that, and be sure to jump in the premium Slack chat if you decide to join. Take advantage of the office hours as well, where you got our pros answering your questions each and every day. All right, Adam, San Antonio and Memphis, we already alluded to it. San Antonio Spurs are really, really cheap on DraftKings. Now, this doesn't mean by any stretch that they aren't still very viable on Fanduel, but let's start off with some of this egregious pricing on DraftKings that has DeJounte Murray at 6,300, Jakob Poeltl at 4,900, DeMar DeRozan at 7K, and that's just the beginning of the list.
Yeah, it's a spot where the pricing, I think, is just really, really favorable. It's It's a spot too where like in the regular season, it never feels that good, of course, when you're going to San Antonio, but now you're talking about the postseason. Like you don't need to have those sort of like back of your mind concerns about Popovich doing something that you don't want him to do in the middle of the game. You know that, barring unforeseen injuries or something, like DeRozan's playing huge minutes, DeJounte Murray's playing huge minutes. The matchup against Memphis is pretty, middle of the road. They were one of the best defenses early in the season. They're still top half of the league over the last month, 11th in pace over that time. So, $7K for DeRozan at small forward on DraftKings, 7,500 at shooting guard on Fanduel. I think he's one of the best options at his position on either site. DeJounte Murray, particularly on DraftKings at 6,300, just an insane price tag. I mean, the guy's going to play 36 plus minutes. He averages 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. There's nothing really to dislike about him there. And then, Jakob Poeltl at 4,900 on DraftKings. Like he's 6,300 on FanDuel, which I think is fine, but 4,900 on DraftKings for a guy that averaged 29 minutes per game in his starts this year. He averages about a fantasy point per minute. If you just get that average amount of playing time with that production, he's giving you basically 6x his salary. Then you assume that he probably is going to play more minutes today because, Jonas Valanciunas has been playing a ton of minutes for Memphis recently. So you assume Poeltl's going to be out there probably for however many minutes Valanciunas is out there. He just, really stands out. So those three guys look great. Then you get to the, Keldon Johnson, Rudy Gay, Lonnie Walker, Patty Mills, and those guys are all viable as well.
Yeah, it's really tough, man. And I think it becomes even more interesting when you consider the fact that all of the top tier players in terms of like 10K and up are from the second game. Steph Curry, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. It feels like it's going to be relatively easy and probably very common. I don't know if you've crunched any lineups yet. I'd be curious to know what the optimal looked like. Have you crunched any lineups yet?
Yeah, I crunched a few.
So how many of them came up with like two of the top tier guys and then a bunch of, Spurs value?
None of mine have two top tier guys. They all have Steph. One has LeBron.
So Steph, and then I'm assuming a bunch of like Joe Val and DeRozan and DeJounte Murray and those guys mixed in with a couple of other semi-cheap guys. Like
so on DraftKings, I crunched 20 of them right before the show. On DraftKings, the top three guys are Murray, DeRozan, Poeltl, and then Steph, and then it goes to the Memphis guys. But then you still get Murray was in all of them. DeRozan and Poeltl were in 18 of the 20. But then you got Rudy Gay in like 9. You got Mills in 8. You got Keldon Johnson in 5. So again, it's just six guys from the Spurs getting in a lot of lineups.
That's crazy. I ask you this all the time, and I know it's less relevant. Maybe you could even argue more relevant, though, on a 2-game slate. How many Spurs are you willing to have today, just given that their prices are so wrong?
I think I'm okay going for. Ideally, I think I'm okay going for as long as as long as you have like ones together that don't overlap. I'm not planning on going like Rudy Gay and Keldon Johnson together. That's one where I'm really interested to see what the starting lineup looks like. We can talk more about that in a minute, but they're just so cheap that like Murray, Poeltl, DeRozan, I think are all individually top plays on the slate, and they're so cheap that it's really easy to see. Like if they all just have average games, they're paying off their salaries. So it's not a situation, I don't think, where it's like, oh, well, if I have DeRozan, and he has a big game, is it going to take too many stats away from DeJounte Murray? If they just play their average games, they're paying off their salaries. And then, if you throw like a $3,300 Patty Mills in there as the fourth guy, or you throw Gay or Johnson in there, I mean, they're cheap enough that I really don't mind having 4 of them. In cash, I think you can go 5. A lot of the top projected lineups have 4 or 5 of these guys.
Wow. So 5 of 8 San Antonio Spurs. I know it's only 2 games, but how much are you capping your ceiling with 5 Spurs, do you think, tonight?
Yeah, I mean, with 5 Spurs, I think the biggest issue, again, it's not even that they can't all do relatively well for these really cheap salaries. The problem is just that you're running out of roster spots to allocate to other guys from either, the other side of this game or from the Lakers game. So, I mean, like the third highest projected lineup I made has Murray, Mills, DeRozan, Johnson, Poeltl. On the surface, I don't really have an issue with any of those guys. The problem is just, I think ideally I would like to get to, one more guy that isn't on the Spurs in my lineup. So I think 5 is kind of a lot. It's still fine in cash, I think, but in tournaments, I think it's kind of a lot. But with 4, I think it just opens up so much other stuff for you. I don't really mind it.
I was looking at our player props tool today, which is totally free for anyone that's looking to check that out over at Awesemo.com, or just go over to OddsShopper.com and check out all of the player props. You can search them by name. You can track your bets. You can put a watch list up there, get notifications for whenever a line moves in the direction you're looking for. And of course, the biggest thing, OddsShopper, that is the name for a reason. Shop odds from all different books, right? So depending on what books are legal in your state, assuming sports betting is legal in your state, you can search all of or you can have all of them right next to each other, see where the best bets are, see where the best odds are, take advantage of that, because any successful sports bettor will tell you that you have to shop odds in order to have sustainable success in sports betting. This is one really simple way to do it. They're all right there in front of you, updating in real time. But the reason I bring that up, Adam, is because we have Patty Mills with a 74% win rate on the over 8.5 points. Our player prop tool over at Awesemo, again, totally free, has him at 11.25 points today. So I mean, that's a pretty significant increase over 8.5 points, right? That's huge, really. And he's minus 105 to the over on this. So you're not even getting that juiced at all. I think that's a pretty interesting spot at 3,300, but also from a betting standpoint when you're looking at our tool.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And Patty Mills is someone that I'm really interested in here, DFS wise, like you were just saying, betting wise too, because, obviously we don't know for sure how it plays out, but it would make a lot of sense to me if Patty Mills just plays a lot more minutes than we're used to tonight. You've seen him coming down the stretch, only playing like 21 to 22 minutes per game. And at his salary, at basically minimum salary on DraftKings and Fanduel, even if he gets those minutes, he projects as a reasonable point per dollar value. But he just, to me, seems like the kind of guy that Pop's going to run out there more in the postseason. He has experience. He's a good play. He's a good guard off the bench. I think you see him take some minutes away from guys like Walker or Devin Vassell. And it's pretty easy to see how Patty Mills would get 26 to 28 minutes tonight.
And he's a trusted vet on Popovich's team who's been there for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just don't really run the risk with Patty Mills of him doing something stupid down the stretch that you do with, a Lonnie Walker or Devin Vassell. Not to take anything away from those guys. It's just, he's been there. He has experience. Pop trusts him. For sure.
Anything else on the Spurs you want to hit on here? Maybe on FanDuel?
So I kind of mentioned it before, but Keldon Johnson and Rudy Gay are both pretty cheap on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Keldon Johnson, even though he has struggled, especially in the second half of the season, he's still averaged about 0.8 DraftKings points per minute and 28 minutes per game. So at his price point, there is still value there, even, factoring in that he has struggled a bit. But in the final game of the season, we actually got Rudy Gay starting the second half ahead of Johnson. So do pay attention to what the starting lineup is there. I think whichever guy starts is going to look like the better or safer value, because it's just a good sign for their playing time. But whichever one comes off the bench, assuming that ownership goes to the starter, whichever one comes off the bench, I think it's going to be an interesting tournament option, because I fully expect it to be a situation between those two of who's playing better. And, if everyone's going to play Keldon Johnson, then Rudy Gay is a good tournament play and vice versa.
All right. Avi Schreier says with the super chat, putting 300 on FanDuel for my birthday. You have to love how people just treat themselves on their birthday by spending money, on themselves. I think that's what we do when we get older. You just spend money on yourselves and justify it because it's your birthday.
Yeah, I mean, I'd find a million different reasons to spend money that I don't need to spend.
Right, and I find a million different ways to do it when it's not my birthday.
Yeah, exactly.
And looking at the blood in the streets in the crypto market today, I regret some of that. I really don't. I mean, I'm in for the long haul, but sometimes when you see those 40, 50% drops in the matter of minutes, you better hold on and know what you're getting yourself into, because it's been nuts. What's up?
Yeah. It's why I try and when I'm deciding on a vacation or something, I just completely pretend my crypto money doesn't exist.
You have to. When I got into it in 2017 and that 2018 crash happened, I did not know what I was in for. now second time around, I'm like, okay, things will get better. It might take a little while, but things will get better. Anyway, he says playing for 100K. Can you talk about sub 4.4K shooting guards on FanDuel? So my assumption is he's built a lineup. He's got $4,400 remaining for a shooting guard, Adam.
Yeah, I'm pulling up FanDuel's pricing now. I know Patty Mills at 3,600 is a shooting guard. He's a good value there. The position in general is not that good. And pricing on FanDuel at shooting guard is actually tougher too, because Wiggins is priced up, Brooks is priced up. So when you look to the cheap guys, it's basically Lonnie Walker or Patty Mills. We have, so Grayson Allen's question, we'll talk about that side of the game, more in a minute. If he's out, you could make a case that maybe Desmond Bane or DeAnthony Melton. But I think really it's Walker or Patty Mills sub 4,400. I'm inclined to lean. I mean, I think it's really, really close. Like I think you're getting around 28 minutes from both guys. So in a tournament like that, where it is 100K to first, I think I would just be inclined to roster whichever one is projected for lower ownership.
Okay, fair enough. And yes, agree, Chad. If you sell right now, you're just making massive mistakes. 0 point in doing anything like that. And James has the comment of the day. You're going to like this. Don't drink anything. Okay. Don't, you're going to Laffy's complexion looks like he's Neapolitan ice cream. It's too good. I mean, you could see the sunburn, right? Like you could see it. Look at that. That's amazing right there. It's crazy. Yeah, that is an amazing, amazing comment. We should NFT that. Be worth like 6 cents these days. All right, let's talk about Memphis then. The Grizzlies have the 4-point favorites today at home, 222.5 total. You got Ja Morant at the top of the player pool, followed by Jonas Valanciunas, but he's who I really want to talk about here and dig into a little bit. Again, Josh and I talked about this a lot, the fact that Poeltl is a good defender, but I'm a little bit less concerned about that, just given that they give up a lot at the rim, 5th most points in the paint, a lot of that just based on the volume that they allow at the rim, and also one of the worst allowing the 2nd most rebounds to opponents this season are the San Antonio Spurs. Moreover, Jonas Valanciunas is just a really ridiculously polished offensive player that probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's a stellar rebounder, and I wouldn't be surprised if he played 36 minutes tonight. He's also someone that shoots 60% from the field. So take all of those things into consideration. I think if he plays 36 minutes or 35 or 34, even 7,600 is just too cheap still.
Yeah, I don't really care how good of a defender Jakob Poeltl is. I mean, the thing with Valanciunas is, or typically the thing with Valanciunas is he's a great fantasy producer from an efficiency standpoint. He averages almost 1.4 DraftKings points per minute, but for the season, he's only averaged 28 minutes per game. And that's kind of why his price point ends up being where it normally is, around, 7,500 to 8K. The thing is, over his last 8 games, he's played at least 30 minutes in 6 of them. In the game against Golden State on Sunday, which was, I think indicative of what you can expect from their playoff rotation, Valanciunas played 35.5 minutes. If you're going to get anywhere close to 36 minutes from Jonas Valanciunas, he's drastically underpriced at 7,600 on DraftKings. I don't care if Embiid's playing center. I don't care if Dwight Howard's playing center. He's just underpriced to 7,600. And 8,700 on Fanduel, of course, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get to, but still gives you immense upside there. So I really, really like Valanciunas just based on the fact that his playing time's been up recently anyway. And then we just saw kind of a dress rehearsal game, where I expect the rotations to be similar, and you saw him get almost 36 minutes. I
like that dress rehearsal. It did kind of feel like that, huh?
Yeah, it feels like you're going from preseason to regular season.
You're right. It certainly did. And he had 29 and 16 in 36 minutes. He just has huge upside. He's got easy 20/20 upside. If Joval rips off 30 points, it wouldn't surprise you either.
No, not at all. Yeah, and the other thing too, like you talk about centers defensively, Joval doesn't have to score at the rim. He rebounds well, he can score at the rim, but he also can shoot. So, he's not someone. It's kind of like when we talk about matchups for guys like Jokic or Embiid. He can score in so many different ways. I'm not really concerned about what Jakob Poeltl is going to do.
I'm going against our player prop tool on this one. Probably shouldn't, but I actually like Jonas Valanciunas to go over 18.5 today. And that's just because of the minutes that I think he gets in a big game for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think you get a lot of production tonight out of Joval, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a huge double-double here. So here's the hoping that happens. Either way, from a DFS standpoint, the price is just too nice. Any thoughts on Ja Morant today?
Yeah, I think he's one of the few actually that is more favorably priced on FanDuel than DraftKings. He's actually cheaper on FanDuel than DeJounte Murray is on the other side of this game. And Morant's another one. I mean, Memphis is a team that I think is just a lot more appealing in this type of circumstance than they are for a lot of the season, because for a lot of the season the issue has been Memphis is running this super deep rotation where everybody plays 32 minutes and none of them are that good for DFS. Ja Morant played 38 minutes against Golden State. There's no reason to think Ja Morant is not playing close to 40 minutes tonight in this game. And he's averaged over 1.1 DraftKings points per minute this year. So one of the reasons he's been kind of disappointing as a fantasy option has been that for the season, he averages like 33 minutes per game. I think there's a good chance you're getting 5+ minutes more tonight than you get on average from Morant. So on DraftKings, he kind of just ends up being forced into being a for lack of a better phrase, a tournament play, because he is so much more expensive than Murray. Like he's just not quote unquote optimal. But on FanDuel, I think he looks great because he's less expensive than Murray. The minutes should be there. The production should be there. I think he looks really, really good.
All right. Let's talk about the rest of this one. You have about, let's see. Let me pull up ownership real quick. Okay. Yeah. So you have about 5 players getting significant ownership on the Grizzlies today. We've hit on 2 of them. What do you do with someone like Jaren Jackson Jr., or as we so affectionately call him, Jaren Jackson Jr., because the foul trouble hasn't changed at all this year either. In the cup of coffee, he's played 11 games. I would assume he's averaging like 6 fouls per 36 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's always risky when you go to him, but I think he's just really underpriced here. We saw him play the most minutes he's played this season in the game against Golden State. He played 31.8 minutes. He also picked up 3 first half fouls in that game. That doesn't necessarily mean
7.8 fouls per I didn't mean to cut you off. 5.9 fouls per 36.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's still doing Jaren Jackson things. But he's also averaging like 1.2 to 1.25 DraftKings points per minute. And that's including just the games where he has started. He's been really, really good from a production standpoint. But in that Golden State game, and it doesn't necessarily mean he lost minutes because he subbed in, he played a longer final rotation in that game than normal, so it's possible that he was only going to play around 32 minutes anyway. But he missed most of the second quarter in that game because he had 3 fouls. So he played almost 32 minutes. I think you could say there's definitely at least a chance that he was going to play like 36 minutes had that game, or had he not been in foul trouble. So at his price point, even if he does play around 30 minutes, 30 to 32, he's going to look good. And he just has that massive upside where if he does get the 34 to 36 minutes, if he is able to avoid foul trouble, he's going to look really good. And I do think, it's always difficult to predict foul trouble, especially someone like Jackson just finds ways to commit fouls. But it does make me feel a little bit better that you're talking about a Spurs front court with Jakob Poeltl and Keldon Johnson, and as opposed to like Anthony Davis or something.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. Jackson finds ways to foul against anybody, but that is a very reasonable point. You're not talking about dominant bigs at all. Do you get to guys like Kyle Anderson here? And as far as bench players go, on a bench that obviously has a very deep rotation, like drove out Anderson, Jackson, Dillon Brooks, Ja Morant, Grayson Allen remains a game time decision, but just looking at a lot of these bench players, is there any value there whatsoever on a very abbreviated slate? And how do you approach the other guys that are getting ownership right now in Anderson and Dillon Brooks?
Yeah, so Anderson and Brooks, I think, are 2 more that just look better on DraftKings than they do on FanDuel. Anderson, I think, is interesting to talk about because he's been very productive this season. He's averaged over a fantasy point per minute. I do have concerns about him with Jaren Jackson back because he's going from playing, mostly playing at the 4 to now he's got, Jaren Jackson out there. He's only played 91 minutes alongside Jackson this year. He has a 5% rebounding percentage. So I looked with Ja Morant on the floor and Jackson off this season. Anderson has an 11.5% rebounding percentage with both of them on the floor, with Jackson alongside Morant. Only 91 minutes, but a 5% rebounding percentage. If you go back to the start of last season, it's down around 10%. So I think it makes sense, that it's probably not going to be as low as it has been so far this year with Jackson, but you're going to see his rebounding numbers take a hit playing alongside Jackson. You're going to see his usage take a hit playing alongside Jackson. So I don't expect Anderson to continue being a 1+ fantasy point per minute guy. But even if you're getting around 0.9 fantasy points per minute at 5,300, assuming he plays around 30 minutes, that's going to make him look pretty good. And then Dillon Brooks, he fouled out last game. He played about 30 minutes, but he fouled out with like 6 minutes left in the game. He's another one where I think during the regular season, it was kind of, Dillon Brooks is going to play 30 minutes, but there's a good chance you're getting 36, 38 minutes from Brooks tonight. More favorably priced on DraftKings than FanDuel. Still a scoring dependent guy, but I think that, as much value as there is on the Spurs, there's a lot on the Grizzlies here too.
Okay. Who would you say your favorite options from the Grizzlies are outside of Joe Val?
And to answer your question about bench guys, if Allen plays, I don't really have interest in anything off the bench. If Allen sits, we did get about 28 minutes from Desmond Bane last game. He's 4,800 on DraftKings. I don't know how you possibly get there, but it does matter for FanDuel where he's minimum salary.
Okay.
And what was your question?
I was saying outside of Joe Val, who are your favorite options from Memphis today?
Jaren Jackson. And then I would say Ja Morant is like my third guy on FanDuel, and Kyle Anderson on DraftKings.
All right. We have a free giveaway today for a free month of Awesemo Plus. Platinum, everything included. All you got to do is check out the pinned tweet at Awesemo_com to enter both of them. Oh, what are we doing? We're giving away a free month. I guess I don't know. We're giving away a bunch of stuff. Go like it, retweet, follow the accounts. Reply who has the more points tonight, LeBron or Steph. I would go with Steph in that case. A random winner will be selected among the correct guesses. If you want to jump in, see if you can win free month of Awesemo Plus. It should only take a second to make that happen. All right, we got one down, one to go. Golden State and the Lakers. This should be fun to get into. Steph Curry is on an absolute tear, and you know his just the 3-point shooting has been electric. Guess how many three-point attempts he's averaging since the beginning of April?
18.
15. But guess how many the next closest player is averaging 5 fewer 3-pointers than he is on the since April. So that's far and away the highest mark in the league. Now, if I were to ask you, I asked Josh the same thing today. If you could guess who is attempting the second most threes over the last month and a half since the beginning of April, who would it be?
Dylan Brooks.
No. Devontae Graham.
Really?
Yeah. Crazy.
Buddy
right?
Hield was going to be my next one.
Buddy Hield's third.
Okay.
Devontae Graham's attempted like double-digit threes in 12 of his last 15 games or something absurd. You wouldn't think so, but he is. It's just Steph Curry hits a lot more of them and scores a lot more. And if Golden State, as a 5.5-point dog today against the best defensive rated team in the league, is going to keep this game competitive and potentially win, I know it's going to be tough. Steph Curry's going to have to go insane. So let's start with him.
Yeah, I think he's the top pay-up option tonight.
Agreed.
He's played 13 games now without Kelly Oubre and without James Wiseman. He's averaging 1.69 DraftKings points per minute. He has a 41% usage rate. Like Steph Curry, one of the most efficient shooters ever, is using 41% of his team's possessions without Oubre and Wiseman active. I know the Lakers are good defensively. I know the pace isn't very appealing, but it's Steph Curry taking a ton of shots. He's not priced up. I mean, he's expensive, but it's not like he got, a Russell Westbrook type bump or something like that. I just really don't know how to get away from Curry here outside, of course, in tournaments, you can always make ownership considerations. Like his range of outcomes isn't drastically different than guys like LeBron or Anthony Davis. But I just think that Curry, you can count on the opportunities. He doesn't have the equivalent of an Anthony Davis or a LeBron siphoning touches away from him. Andrew Wiggins stays out of his way and lets Curry do his thing. Draymond Green sets him up. It's just, I think Steph Curry is the top play as far as pay-up options go.
Do you go over under 36.5 points on Steph Curry?
I would go over.
Over?
Yeah.
Okay. Even money, you take the over. So, I mean, I guess ultimately you and I would both agree here. There's really no way for the Warriors to stay close if Steph Curry has a bad game, unless Wiggins goes crazy or something. But who else is going to get it done? Seriously, who else on this team?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you try and think of the circumstances where this game's competitive and Steph's not having a good game, I guess it means Andrew Wiggins makes every three that he takes, or Jordan Poole just lights up the second unit. Like, I think those are the only two ways.
Right. Or Golden State's defense is just so locked down and electric that LeBron James and Anthony Davis have a tough time getting it going. Yeah,
I was gonna say, or the score is like 80-68 or something, or 80-74. Like,
do you think if Golden State wins this game, it has to be a high scoring game?
No,
because I don't either. As a matter of fact, I think this game could stay close. It's just, I guess what we're saying, there's only a few possibilities to where this game could stay competitive and Curry doesn't perform well. There's really only two, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Low scoring game.
Bazemore, I guess, could get hot too, but
I guess, but I'm not willing to look at.
Yeah. The kind of the overarching thing here is like, when you're talking about the pay up options, what it goes back to is we're talking about, in all likelihood, if the Warriors play a good game, a good competitive game, the offense is going through Steph Curry. He's carrying the load. When you look at the other expensive guys, Anthony Davis could have a really big game and carry the Lakers. LeBron James could have a really big game and carry the Lakers. So it's why I think Curry, just is ahead of those two, because he's not playing with either of them.
Who do we look to outside of Steph Curry for this Warriors team?
I think Andrew Wiggins is the next guy for me. He's only 6,600 on DraftKings, which is a really good price point. 7,800 on Fanduel is fine as well. Averaging a little below 1 fantasy point per minute in the games he's played with Curry and without Oubre and Weissman. But he led Golden State in minutes per game over their last 10 games. He played about 37 minutes against Memphis on Sunday. I'm expecting that you get around 40 minutes from him tonight. So I think he's just a little bit underpriced for how many minutes he's going to play. And then, of course, you have Draymond Green, who has averaged well over a fantasy point per minute in his games without Weissman this year. Not going to do much in the way of scoring, but I think you probably get around 40 minutes from him. So, Steph, the number one guy for me. Then I would say Wiggins and Green. And then you're looking, I think, the fourth guy I would mention is Kevon Looney, who did play 31 minutes against Memphis. I don't think that's set in stone. Like, you could certainly see a closing lineup that has Juan Toscano-Anderson instead of Kevon Looney. So I think, there's still a chance that you get like 26 minutes instead of 30 plus from Looney, but he's cheap enough where I don't really mind rolling the dice there if you need to pay down for someone.
Is there any value in saying, all right, Kent Bazemore is at a price that's pretty tough to get to just given his overall skill set? But if he plays 30 plus minutes, he's been seeing decent enough shot volume to at least be involved in the offense. Can you say, all right, maybe a low-owned Kent Bazemore does make some sense on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can't really talk someone off on a 2-game slate of someone that's going to play 30 plus minutes barring foul trouble or something. I think out of like all the starters on this slate, Kent Bazemore is probably one of the lowest probabilities of like having success for his salary, but you're still talking about 4 teams. I mean, if anyone is going to play 30 plus minutes and the field is just going to say, okay, well, we're not going to roster that guy, you can always make a case for playing him on a 2-game slate.
Yeah, he's got a 6% boom rating, 58% bust rating on the slate, but he does have a 19.3% chance of being in the optimal at 17% ownership. So it's not all bad.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, that kind of just comes down to there's a lack of options.
Of course. Yeah, I'm saying like on a slate like this, though, 19% is still kind of high because you only have 2 games.
Right.
But aside from that, it's kind of tough. From a bench standpoint, we talked about all of the starters. Do you think we can make an argument for Poole or Toscano-Anderson? I know you talked about it a little bit, but just to dive in a little bit further on these guys, 4,700 for Poole, 5,100 for Toscano-Anderson on DraftKings. On FanDuel, where you've got Toscano-Anderson at 5,600 and Jordan Poole at 4,900, point guard eligible.
I think you can make a better case for Toscano-Anderson than Poole. Like, Poole's always kind of appealing because, he's just capable of coming out and lighting it up off the bench. But the problem is that Curry's going to play so many minutes. I don't really want to go to the scoring dependent, bench guy that, hope he gets hot because, during the regular season, maybe he's getting like, 14 minutes without Curry. Tonight, he's probably getting like 8. So I don't like that one as much. But Toscano-Anderson, for a couple of reasons, like coming off the bench, it should knock his ownership down. But he does have that path to be in the closing lineup. You saw him play 27 minutes against Memphis, but Looney played about 6.5 minutes late in the fourth quarter without Toscano-Anderson. Like, those minutes could very easily be Toscano-Anderson if he's playing well and he ends up with 32 or 33 minutes. And the other thing I like is Toscano-Anderson's not scoring dependent. So, when you talk about a team where all the shots are going to Steph Curry, I just feel better taking a chance on someone like Toscano-Anderson that can go grab some rebounds, pick up some defensive stats, and get there that way, as opposed to trying to get the guy that's going to like take the ball from Steph Curry and shoot it.
Since we still have some time to get to the Lakers here before we turn it over to the Live Before Lock crew, you got Josh Engleman, Greg Ehrenberg coming up next. I want to take a second just to touch on the boom bust tool here because I think it would really help people to make some sense of this. I get questions on it all the time. A lot of days this tool will actually be free if you're not a premium sub. Today, NBA ownership rankings are free, MLB player rankings, PGA ownership projections, and NHL main slate ownership projections, all usually premium content today, are free. But I'd love to get your explanation on a couple of things as far as how to read this. And I'll give you an example. Today, DeJounte Murray is getting 56.2% projected ownership on DraftKings, but his optimal lineup probability is actually 65.7%. He has a 42.7% boom rating and an 18% bust rating. So is this someone that you would look at and say, all right, his ownership is really high, but given what we have right here in front of our faces, he still makes for an exceptionally good play, even though he's really, really popular?
Yeah, pretty much. And the reason is there's a couple of things that can be the case there. For one, it could just be, I mean, if, for example, LeBron James were 6K, he would be in all the optimal lineups just because he's LeBron James at 6K and he's never going to fail. The other way, though, that something like that, it's kind of telling you, or like in this case, it's telling you, for one, Murray's a good play at 6,300. He's clearly underpriced, but it's also telling you that price point is really, really useful in making your lineups. Like a lot of times you'll see someone that, or potentially see someone that they look pretty good at their salary, but then, like you start building a lineup, so you're like, man, I'm never getting to this guy because, like, for example, in the last month of the NBA season, when guys are like 6,500 and it's like, oh, they look like a pretty good play, but I'm never getting to them because I'm just playing, 4 3K guys and 4, 3 studs. So it's telling you that that price point is being useful in the simulations and in the optimal lineups as well. So it's the simplest way to look at it is just to compare optimal percentage to ownership percentage, and you'll get an idea of if that player is over projected or under projected. But you also want to keep in mind the actual optimal percentage, because if someone is in 65% of the optimals, even if their ownership is a little bit higher than that, it's still telling you that he's in the optimal lineup a huge percentage of the time. And vice versa, if someone's in 4% of the optimals and only 2% owned, yeah, they're under owned, but it's still not someone that you probably want to be jamming into all your lineups because there's a 4% chance of them winning you the slate.
Yeah, those are good points at the end. So it's you have to take a nuanced approach with it. It's not the same approach to every spot, in the sense of like low ownership or ownership lower than optimal doesn't necessarily mean they're a good play. Low ownership higher than optimal doesn't mean they're a bad play either. It's all in context.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of where, using a combination of stuff like projection, like ownership, like, mixing in, projection, ownership percentage, optimal percentage, it kind of balances out well, because then you'll get, the best projected lineups that you can that aren't, too over-owned, basically. So, just like anything else, you don't want to look at one stat and say like, oh, this is a good play or this is a bad play. But I would say the boom bust tool, if I had to pick one thing to like describe someone as good or bad, even though again, you shouldn't, it's flawed. This is, I think, gives you a better understanding than any other one individual thing.
For sure. And I know some really good players like Steve Buzzard, the Colts, who's won a lot of money, will tell you, like, when people ask him, he goes, I use the boom bust tool and I use it religiously.
Yeah.
So, it's something a lot of people use. All right, let's get to the Lakers. First, though, we have about 1,800 people watching, 280 likes. We're coming in around 15%. Poor ratio here. Let's do better than this. Save myself and Adam the embarrassment. Hopefully we're putting on a decent show. But if you haven't done so, you jumped into the stream late, hammer that thumbs up button for this play-in round between the Spurs, Grizzlies, Warriors, and Lakers, and subscribe to the channel. Only like 50% of people that watch these shows are subscribed. So remedy that wrong. And if you hate it, just unsubscribe. You'll never have to hear from us again. All right, man, let's do it. Lakers, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, 10-2 and $10,000 respectively on DraftKings. On Fanduel, LeBron James, 10,000, Anthony Davis, 11,000. So, that's a huge disparity in price point. Two different positions. Of course, LeBron at small forward, Davis at power forward. Let's touch on that first and how you attack this on Fanduel with $1,000 gap in different positions.
Yeah, I think that James looks better. Like, I think he looks better on DraftKings, where they're basically the same price. I think he clearly looks better on Fanduel, where he's $1,000 less expensive. And you also, when you're talking Fanduel, I think not that the power forward position is deep, but you have Draymond, you have Jackson, you have Rudy Gay, you have Toscano Anderson. Like, those are all pretty reasonable plays. At small forward, beyond LeBron, you have Anderson, you have Keldon Johnson, Kuzma, Caldwell Pope. Like, I think the power forward position gives you a little bit more upside if you exclude Davis than the small forward position does if you exclude LeBron. So I think it works in LeBron's favor there. He played 28 and 27 minutes in the last 2 games of the season on a back-to-back. My assumption is that he's just playing full minutes tonight. Haven't seen that he's not. And typically when it comes to LeBron's minutes, it's LeBron plays however many minutes LeBron wants to play. I'd be pretty surprised if he decides that he needs to be limited in this game. So I'm assuming you're getting full minutes from LeBron. He's averaged just shy of 1.5 fantasy points per minute in the games he's played with Davis this year. So, I think he is ahead of Davis. Davis has averaged about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute in his games with LeBron. They have a very similar range of outcomes. There's plenty of times, if you were to play this game 100 times, where Davis just, has a better game than LeBron. So I think that it's definitely a spot in tournaments. Like, LeBron's going to get more ownership, and I think that he should, but it's a spot where like you shouldn't have a particularly strong lean, like, oh, I'm just going to jam LeBron in every lineup and play no Anthony Davis or something like that. Because, you know, Davis is the lowest owned of the 3 payout guys. He does still have a ridiculously high ceiling. But I do think that he's the, you know, least likely to get there of the 3.
So I'm with you. And I'm also not at all worried about LeBron's minutes. But I would say this much, because I think those games that he played returning from that, what was it, like 2-week hiatus or whatever it was? Or no, I'm sorry, that was over a month, right? Yeah, that was like a month and a half, almost month and 40 days. And then he came back, and then he was out again for 2 weeks or so. You get things mixed up. But he came back, played 28 and 27 minutes. To me, Adam, that's more so him just being LeBron James and not needing to necessarily play more minutes. They won both of those games. If he has to play 36 minutes tonight, I think you get 36 minutes from LeBron. The thing I have, if we're comparing them not to each other, but to Stephen Curry, who you already said is your top pay-up option, and I have no argument with that at all. I don't see why you would. The problem there is there's nobody else on the Warriors that could split a good game. And what I mean is like LeBron and Davis could both finish with 45 DraftKings points. So we see it all the time. They could both finish with 50. One of them could finish with 70. The other could finish with 45. Again, if the game stays close, Curry's the one finishing with 60 plus, like 99 times out of 100.
Yeah, and that's kind of what like when you and I were talking about that before with Curry. To me, that's what the really like DFS relevant takeaway was. You know, there's 3 guys to pay up for on the slate. 2 of them share the ball with each other. One of them is Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry is going to look like the best.
Yep, exactly. So it doesn't mean you're not targeting the Lakers' top guys today. It just means that would be the reason Stephen Curry is the better option here. But let's go a little bit further in depth with LeBron James and Davis. Do you think, number one, it's feasible to make good lineups with one of these 2 top-tier Lakers and Stephen Curry? And is there any incentive at all to playing Anthony Davis and LeBron James in the same lineup without playing Steph Curry?
That one I think is pretty tough. Like on a 2-game slate, I don't want to get too bogged down in, you know, in making rules that limit my lineups. Like, you know, yeah, there's certainly a path where the game is close enough. Because the thing is, like, you still have to get raw points. So let's say the Lakers win, you know, let's say Davis and James come out like halfway through the 4th quarter. Curry has a bad game. You can still have it where James and Davis are 2 of the top scorers on the slate in terms of raw points. So like, I'm not on a 2-game slate. I don't think I would say that like you can't have them together, but I don't think it would be the first thing I do. It's not something I really like. As far as getting lineups that have both of them, I think you can do it. I mean, if you put Curry and LeBron as the first 2 in on DraftKings, you still have $4,983 left over. So, I mean, Pirtle's less expensive than that. Whoever starts at power forward for the Spurs is less expensive than that. Looney's less expensive than that. Mills is less expensive than that. It's still going to be pretty easy to get those guys, I think.
All right. Now you start working your way down into Drummond and Dennis Schroder, who was out for a relatively prolonged period of time in COVID protocol. He came back for the final 2 games of the season. But the Andre Drummond spot here is really weird because you have Marc Gasol, who against this front court, like, do you really need his defense? It's a question worth asking, and the answer could certainly be no. We'll see what Frank Vogel decides to do with him. Then you have Montrezl Harrell, who's also going to get minutes at the 5. How do you see this center rotation going today, and do you feel confident about any of it?
Hell no, but I think that makes it a really, really interesting spot. And I mentioned it in the deep dive today. So Andre Drummond, you know, assuming he gets the start here, he's the guy that you can at least feel confident is going to step on the floor at center for the Lakers. He's going to play anywhere from 22 to 30 plus minutes. Like, we don't know. We haven't seen what Frank Vogel's rotation is going to look like, you know, in this matchup or in the playoffs. You could get, you know, 30 minutes from Drummond. He has a very high ceiling. You know, I think he's averaged about 1.4 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with LeBron and Davis since joining the Lakers. And he certainly could play 30 minutes, which would make him look like a pretty good option here. But he's also risky because there's no shortage of ways this rotation can go. You know, you can get 22 or 24 minutes from Drummond. You can get Harrell and Gasol splitting the rest. You can get just Gasol playing and Harrell not playing. You can get Harrell playing and Gasol not playing. You can get Anthony Davis playing minutes at the 5 to close the game, in which case none of them are on the floor. So the rotation is very volatile, especially when you consider that Golden State has a small front court. Drummond certainly could be out there, but it's not like he's going to need to be. And so I think there's a lot of ways it can go. And in situations like that, looking at ownership, I think does make a lot of sense. 20% ownership on DraftKings going to Drummond right now, I think that's pretty reasonable. I wouldn't say it's too high or too low. What I noticed, though, is right now we have Montrezl Harrell projected for less than 1% ownership. I don't know if maybe that'll come up at least a couple of points, before lock. I don't think it's very likely that Harrell is someone that plays enough minutes tonight that he really helps you win tournaments. But I think it happens more than 1 in 100 times or something. If you go back and look at the Lakers' last 5 games, Harrell was a DNP last game, but he played 19 against Indiana the game before that. He played 26 against Houston, 5 against the Knicks, 15 against the Suns, 20 against the Lakers. He's only 3,800. So basically he's the same price as Kevon Looney, who's getting 22% ownership on DraftKings. And if you're playing, if you need that price point in cash, hands down, no brainer, Kevon Looney over Harrell. And in most tournament lineups, it probably should be too, because there's a chance that Looney plays 30 minutes more than Harrell tonight. But it's very rare on a 2-game slate to find a cheap player who is projected for low ownership and who actually has the volatility that it's reasonable. You can very easily say, oh, well, this is what happens in order for Harrell to have a good game or the player to have a good game. It's very rare to find those players on a 2-game slate and for them to be low owned. So in larger field tournaments, I do think, even though you're risking a 0, there is some merit in just taking some shots on a very low on Montrezl Harrell.
Okay. Do you worry that in the event that Andre Drummond does get significant minutes and for some reason they just go big, Vogel just goes big for a while, do you worry that we could see a huge decline in rebounding from Anthony Davis? Because I know they haven't played a ton of minutes together. Drummond came over at the deadline. Anthony Davis didn't come back till later. They played around 300 minutes. Drummond has a 23.4% rebounding rate playing alongside Davis. He's got 23% rebound rate on the season as well. So pretty much identical to what we've seen on the season. Davis is around 12%, but Drummond is just such a hulking presence on the board, specifically on the defensive boards, and with his ability to get putbacks. Do you think that's a spot that could actually hurt Davis if Drummond gets the additional run?
Yeah. It's certainly not something you would expect to help him. And it's another reason why I think LeBron just looks a little bit or projects a little bit better than Davis. You get those assist numbers in addition to the scoring, and he rebounds as well. Davis, I do think that playing alongside Drummond isn't ideal. It's kind of why, from a DFS standpoint, we all just wish Anthony Davis was willing to play the 5. He produces at a higher rate anyway. But I think that is one thing that it's not something that I'm massively downgrading Davis for, but it is something that I don't expect to help him.
Yeah, Elijah says, Lavi, what does the wife think of the bald face? She made a joke that I can't actually say, but she basically was like, good thing we did this yesterday because this thing isn't going to happen again for the next week, if you know what I mean. And then I did it, and she's like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought. But she was just being nice. That's not true. She would tell me the truth. So could be worse, I guess. So we are here. It grows back. We'll live. Harrell is, you talked about Harrell. We talked about Drummond getting the front court out of the way. Let's move to Kyle Kuzma. Always a fun topic of conversation here, Adam. Kyle Kuzma is $5,400 on DraftKings. He's pulling about 4% ownership. He's 4,000 though on Fanduel, getting around 26%. So at this point, pricing dictates everything on Kyle Kuzma. Yeah,
and I think he's another one that, he has a ceiling. He has a path to playing a good amount of minutes, but it all depends on what happens with, or a lot depends at least, on what happens with the Lakers center rotation. If they close this game with Anthony Davis at the 5, I assume Kuzma plays more minutes. If they close this game with Drummond or with Harrell or with Gasol, then you could see Kuzma lose out. You could see Schroder, KCP, James, Davis, and insert a center lineup where Kuzma's on the bench. So I think he's another one with volatile playing time, and it makes it, so it's really risky. You can't really trust him, but also, if he's going to get 4% ownership on a 2-game slate, as the tournaments get larger, you should be more willing to take a chance on him. On FanDuel, like you said, really cheap at 4K, still risky, but at a pretty weak small forward position and a really cheap price point, it's a lot easier to get there, I think. And it's kind of like, if he does only play 22 to 24 minutes, it's not the end of the world at 4K. If he gets 28 or 30 minutes somehow, then he's going to look really good.
Who else do you want to hit on? Oh, we haven't talked about Dennis Schroder, have we?
No, we haven't.
I'm not convinced that you have a ton to say on Schroder on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, his price has come down a lot. Of course, he's sharing the rock with Anthony Davis, and more importantly, LeBron James just is your de facto ball handler and playmaker, and Dennis Schroder can kind of pick up the scraps. Hopefully they'll stagger minutes enough here to where he can be somewhat viable. But with everybody healthy now in the Lakers, how does it affect Dennis Schroder, and is 5,500 or 6,100 viable enough for us to get there tonight on such a short slate?
Yeah, I think both salaries are fine in tournaments for sure. And on FanDuel at 5,500, I think it's probably just fine in general. He played 26 games with Davis and LeBron both active this year, 0.84 DraftKings points per minute. So you certainly saw a decrease in his production, but I'm expecting him to play mid-30s in minutes or upper 30s in minutes here. At those salaries, it's still going to project well. I think the biggest reason why he'll be difficult to get to on DraftKings is he's $200 less than DeJounte Murray, who clearly projects better. But he's certainly someone you can use as a lower owned tournament pivot over Murray if you happen to not have Murray in a lineup or whatever. I don't think he's overpriced.
Who else do we talk about from the Lakers? We got about 5 minutes to go here. We have some requests for Talen Horton-Tucker coming into the chat. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is cheap, getting some attention on DraftKings. On FanDuel, KCP, not so much, but a little bit there at 4,900. The Lakers, it's funny, are usually a team that you and I kind of just gloss over, even when they didn't have LeBron and Anthony Davis, right? Like we still kind of just be like, okay, maybe Dennis Schroder, Drummond's okay at that discounted price point, not getting a lot of ownership, but today's a little bit different.
Yeah, actually, in those 20 DraftKings lineups I crunched before the show, KCP shows up the most of any Laker,
Really?
Which isn't. He's in what, 3? Yeah, he's in 3 of the 20 lineups. LeBron was in 1. No other Laker was in any.
I don't think that's crazy. If you're getting 30 minutes at 4,000, you're just really playing the minutes here.
Yeah, exactly. And the price, like looking at, the lineup, the second highest projected lineup had KCP, and looking at the rest of it, it's got Curry, it's got DeRozan, it's got Valanciunas, it's got Jaren Jackson, it's got DeJounte Murray. So like it's getting me a lot of, I think, the best plays on the slate, and you can kind of just, like, in your head, you can see how it was made. It was kind of just like, okay, we're going to plug in all these really good plays, and then we have 4K left to finish off with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So no real issues there. It's just, sort of a product of the slate being a 2-game slate, and you're going to get, or you should get, pretty big minutes from KCP. He played 30 minutes against the Pacers on the 15th. In the blowout against the Pelicans, he played 27.5 minutes in 3 quarters. You could easily get 33, 34 minutes from him here. So it's not a spot you're going to be confident in, but it's more about what else is he getting into the lineup for you.
Okay. That's right, Marino. Always coming through on the bets, man. It took me a little bit. Had that wicked sunburn, but here we are. Justice Laffy, put that coffee down. It'll stunt your growth. Bro, I'm 8 feet tall. You can't stunt this growth. All right. Anybody else for the Lakers you want to talk about?
Not really. I mean, you said people were mentioning Horton-Tucker. I think it's really, really tough to make an argument for him. I mean, in the final game of the season, he played 14 minutes. He played 7 minutes in the first half. He's someone that you can look to when guys like Caruso or Schroder or both are out. But with all those guys back, I don't really see getting there. I don't really see getting to Caruso. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, you know what you're getting from LeBron and Davis. I think both are fine. LeBron looks better to me than Davis does. Schroder, I think, is underpriced, particularly on FanDuel, but his salary on DraftKings is fine as well. The problem is just that he's so close to DeJounte Murray in salary. The center position is basically a dice roll. You get a high ceiling and some risk from Drummond. You get a reasonable ceiling and low ownership for the salary from Harrell, but he's literally got a 0-point floor. Like, he might not step on the floor tonight. I do think that he probably plays, since Golden State has a small front court. I think that in large field tournaments, you should probably have some shares, but certainly not safe whatsoever.
Did you ever listen to Howard Stern back in the day?
Rarely.
Might be a little bit before your time. What are you now, 30?
31.
Okay, I'll get that one day.
You're getting closer. I'm not in my 20s anymore.
It was, you know who Beetlejuice is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not like Beetlejuice, the character, but Beetlejuice on his show?
No.
Oh, man. Okay. He'd be like, I'm 7'6". I'm 8 feet tall. I'm 500 pounds. He was like 3'1" and about 85 pounds. It was the greatest. You have to go back. Anyone that doesn't, the classic days, the Artie Lang, Howard Stern days with Beetlejuice and Eric the actor. Oh, man. It'll change your life. Just a wonderful time to be alive back then. And then it all went to shit. But anyway, Adam, we got Time running out, 41 seconds. Time flies when you're having a blast. Let's do this before we turn it over to Live Before Lock. Oh, and by the way, thank you. We're up over 400 likes. Make that 408. So appreciate you guys coming through on a short 2-game slate like this. Oh, you know what? Let's do this. We got a super chat here. Well, Slick Messy says naked face Laffy in all caps. Thanks, bud. And then Suave says, is Curry a must on FanDuel? And how do you feel about Kuzma? Well, we answered the Kuzma question, but is Curry a must on FanDuel?
If you're talking tournaments, no. If you're talking cash, yeah, probably.
Okay. Careful with those images, Jordan. There might be some with like just a straight dick, and you might want to screen. I'm looking at one right there. His pants are completely off. All right. Top pay up option is Curry. Who is your top value option today? Is it KCP? Is it Patty Mills? Who's it going to be?
I'll say, I think if you're talking true value in terms of like just, bottom of the barrel pricing, I think Patty Mills would be 1, KCP 2. You could also, as far as the cheap guys go, whoever's like, if Rudy Gay were to start for the Spurs tonight, I think it becomes him.
Okay. There you have it. Thanks, guys, for hanging out as always. Good luck tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive as always. Coming up, Josh and Greg with Live Before Lock, taking you all the way up till 7:30 Eastern time. We'll see you back here soon.
And we are getting started just as Jordan Klein gets finished. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg, and we are here for Live Before Lock. And it's exciting because I can't see Jordan reacting to this, but I'd imagine it went well for me. 2-gamer. I've already talked about it twice today. I'm excited to talk about it a third time because now I get the actual opinions I'm looking for. Before, it was a solo show or Laffy, and we obviously don't care what Laffy has to think. So, Greg, how's it going?
Yeah, well, hey, listen, we might get some news we're going to get some news at some point during the show. We're going to find out whether Grayson Allen's playing or not. So as far as this slate goes, that's fairly massive news. So that'll be something to react to.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's not like anybody becomes an awesome play if that happens. But then we start looking at someone like Desmond Bane at the flat minimum on Fanduel, and that's where things start coming into play. I just want him to play so I don't have to care about those guys. But I assume you're on the same page here.
Yeah. The other thing too is, I mean, the way the Grizzlies have run the rotation this year, we know that the minutes are generally, kind of spread out, which already kind of makes this a little tricky for a 2-game slate. But then if we start to get Grayson Allen out, then all of a sudden we're probably going to get one of those cheap guys going to end up being an optimal lineup on the Grizzlies. And that could be a little bit of a headache to figure out.
Absolutely could. We've got, let's see, 1,800 and change people in here, 467 likes. I wonder if people just assumed that I was on earlier. Like they didn't recognize Laffy because he shaved his face and they just thought it was me. Maybe that's the case. Either way, guys, please hit that like button. Helps us out a ton. And I like seeing that number climb north of 500. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. You haven't talked about this basketball slate yet, have you?
No, I've only talked about baseball so far today.
Oh, God, that sounds terrible. All right. Well, normally we would go position by position, but I think it'll be easier to get your thoughts on a team by team basis, unless you would like to go position by position. You tell me.
Yeah, I think team by team makes sense. I mean, there's really 2 teams that I'm targeting in a major way, and then certain specific pay up options from the later game that I'm targeting. But I assume that you have similar thoughts to what I'm alluding to.
Yeah, let's work our way through Spurs Grizzlies. That is the easier game to roster just from a salary perspective. Let's start on the Spurs side. We have guys like DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, very clearly not priced correctly, in my opinion. Keldon Johnson, pretty cheap. Jakob Poeltl on DraftKings for some reason is priced like he hasn't been the starter for the Spurs for 4 months. What do you want to prioritize most for the Spurs?
Yeah, I don't understand the Jakob. I mean, the short answer is all of them, but I don't understand the Jakob Poeltl price whatsoever. Like, I understand, like, 'cause especially this is a slate where it should have been hard to find value, and it certainly is harder to find value on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. But DraftKings just priced these guys so incorrectly. Jakob Poeltl, the last time he was 4,900. I'm scrolling through his game log right now. When would you guess last time he was 4,900 on DraftKings?
When did LaMarcus Aldridge get traded? February.
It was
I don't know, early January, late December, something like that.
Yeah, it was the first game he started for the Spurs, February 3rd. He was 4,600. So even as a bench player, he was 4,600 for the Spurs. And now they're just like, hey, playoff time. This guy who's always been priced over 6,000, just randomly 4,900, and just becomes a no-brainer value play on the slate. Like, unless he's going to go out and get in foul trouble from Valanciunas, which, sure, there's a slight chance of that happening. I think that Poeltl is the most likely player to be optimal on this slate by at least somewhat of a margin on DraftKings. I definitely think he's the best points per dollar play.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. I didn't understand that price today at all. But then I looked at the rest of the Spurs. DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan. I mean, I'm getting a ton of these guys on FanDuel, and they're priced even better on DraftKings. How are you managing just Spurs in your lineups in general?
All right, so the first run I did before I set any rules in Fantasy Cruncher, I think I was like, well, here's an issue because Optimizer is spitting out just nothing but Spurs players in all my lineups. So I'm trying to limit the Spurs to 4 per lineup unless I'm having 2 Grizzlies players running back. So I do have some lineups that are like 5 Spurs players, 2 Grizzlies, and then 1 plug from the later game. Okay. I do think it's a really strong game to stack, especially because I think that there's somewhat of a chance that the Lakers just smash the Warriors tonight. And if that happens, then for sure, I think the earlier game is going to end up being optimal. And then also the pricing's way more favorable. So I have a lot more exposure to this game than I normally would have of any one individual game on a larger slate.
Yeah, I have a ton of this game, way more than Lakers, Warriors. Is there anybody since we're talking a little bit about the Spurs, is there anybody for the Spurs that is picking up ownership that you don't totally agree with?
Lonnie Walker looks a little bit overowned to me. I have him in my player pool, but significantly less than the field. And also all this is, kind of splitting hairs because there's not going to be anybody who's a viable play that I could outright fade on a 2-game slate, but I'm pretty significantly underweight to the field on Lonnie Walker right now. He is, let's see, I'll bring up the latest ownership to make sure that I have. Yeah, so 24.4%. I think that is pretty aggressively high for Lonnie Walker, especially, I mean, you consider he's 4,300 and like Jakob Poeltl's 4,900. Patty Mills is cheaper than that, and I have Patty Mills projected for more fantasy points than Lonnie Walker. So To me, he's the one guy that stands out as being overowned the most.
Yeah, I just really don't know what to do at the shooting guard spot for FanDuel, because it's not like I feel all that great about the rest of it, whether that's THT, Wes Matthews, if he plays, Bane, Vassell, Melton, Allen, like all of that at the bottom, I don't really love. Lonnie Walker does seem like that best guy. And then when I look at Lonnie Walker's ownership in comparison to Patty Mills, it's like, well, it just feels like Lonnie Walker should be significantly more owned than Patty Mills. And that's where I don't feel like I can get to Mills, at which point then I only have two other shooting guards that I care about. And all of a sudden I don't know what to do with the position, because at this point I'm coming pretty close to lock buttoning DeMar DeRozan. And I don't really know where else I could go. That just seems like the easiest spot. So I need Andrew Wiggins to not kill me.
So I'm going to make one case for Patty Mills here. And this is a little bit narrative driven, but Patty Mills, this seems like a spot where Popovich would lean on and play a couple extra minutes. Not that I think Patty Mills goes out and plays, 32, 34 minutes or anything like that, but I do feel a little more comfortable in his playing time than Lonnie Walker's.
I don't feel comfortable with anything from the Spurs, if I'm being perfectly honest.
That is also reasonable. Also, that Lonnie Walker has generally been a terrible fantasy producer in the starting lineup this year. 28 minutes per game as a starter and 21 DraftKings points per game. Not that Patty Mills lights the world on fire as a fantasy producer, but I still do view him a little bit more favorably on a points per minute basis than Lonnie Walker.
Anybody else you want to touch on here on the Spurs side? Murray, Gay, backup du jour, Drew Eubanks playing the role of Goga Batadze today. Is that a possibility?
So I actually thought about that for a second. I was like, hey, look, if Jakob Poeltl is going to pick up all this ownership, the most sensible way I thought to pivot was to get to Drew Eubanks. But then I look at the ownership and it's kind of there for him. If he was, 1%, 2% owned like Goga yesterday, then I'd say like, hey, that's a play that makes sense as a pivot. But Eubanks is already 10% rostered by the field right now. It's not like he's going unowned.
Yeah, it's maybe they watched Goga yesterday and they were like, you know what, I need to get a backup center. That's going to be my method to getting to the top of the line. Let's transition over now to Memphis, where Ja Morant continues to be priced on FanDuel as if he's not about to play 36 plus minutes. That one's really fun. I'm having a lot of trouble not getting there. Similar story for DeJounte Murray. Point guard on FanDuel is really tricky because Morant and Murray are unquestionably the best point per dollar plays. And then we have not discussed yet Steph Curry playing in a game to try to make the 7th seed in the NBA playoffs, shooting the lights out and probably shooting 20 plus threes. So how are you feeling about Morant? And then how are you just managing that point guard position on FanDuel, which is kind of loaded?
Yeah. So the other thing with Curry, though, that I think we have to consider a lot of the game theory and strategy behind this is if he doesn't play well today, doesn't it kind of stand to reason that we don't get good fantasy games out of Anthony Davis and LeBron James? Like, what is the scenario where Steph Curry is a stinker and LeBron and Anthony Davis are still playing in the fourth quarter and picking up big fantasy games?
I think the question or the real problem in that thought process, and I do agree with you. If Curry's not playing well, I assume the game's not going well, and those minutes are limited. I still think the highest scorer of all of those three is still the most important guy on the slate and probably making the optimal lineup. So even if they are getting limited, if AD is the highest scorer of those three, whether they're limited or not, I think he ends up in an optimal. Same story for LeBron or even Curry for that matter. I think one of them has to be there.
I think probably most likely one of them is going to be there. I'm not totally sure though. I have to check to see if I have any lineups that don't have, I probably have one of them in all my lineups just based on the way the pricing works. Cause there's nobody else to pay up for in the earlier game. But yeah, I think just based on the pricing, it's probably true that we don't need one of them to go out and score, 60 fantasy points or whatever, but I do have a strong lean. At least on DraftKings towards Steph Curry is my favorite option of the three. FanDuel is a little bit different because of positionality. Because like you said, I do think on a points per dollar basis that we do have DeJounte Murray and Ja Morant as the overall best points per dollar point guard plays. But then I look, Anthony Davis is 11,000. That's pretty expensive. I think that LeBron a little more reasonable at 10,000, also at a small forward position that's hard to fill. So overall, I think on FanDuel, my lean is toward LeBron as the best of the three. And then on DraftKings, it's Steph.
I have no concept of what I want to do with the three of those guys on FanDuel. Like I have it AD, Steph, LeBron. If I'm just like ordering them and someone has to be first, someone has to be second, someone has to be third, the separation between these guys is basically like a half fantasy point, which is tricky. The real problem for me is the fact that I think Ja Morant and DeJounte Murray are such good plays that it naturally pulls me down on Curry. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it does seem to be a path that I'm willing to take.
So in the build I have more exposure. I have my most exposed point guard on FanDuel is Morant. Second is Murray. Third is Curry. On DraftKings, my most exposed point guards are 1 Murray and then 2 is Curry.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any to me, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 for who's the biggest scorer out of those three guys. To me, we're flipping a coin. I'd lean Curry because he doesn't have to compete with another stud. He's certainly not competing with Draymond for scoring, but I don't feel comfortable about it at all. And watching Curry go crazy would be really fun.
Yeah. I have them in tiers. I have Curry 1, LeBron 2, and then Anthony Davis 3, and I have a couple of fantasy points separating each of them across those tiers.
That makes sense to me.
And
let's talk about the rest of Memphis.
Okay,
I've got another guy that I need to touch on, unless you have something else that you wanted to touch on for the guards.
No, I don't want to jump around too much. I was going to bring up another point about Anthony Davis. We could hit on it later. We've got all the time in the world.
We certainly do. Yeah, we still have 45 more minutes. So what are your thoughts on Jaren Jackson for today? Power forward looks like this on FanDuel. Jaren Jackson, as mentioned, Anthony Davis, Draymond Green, Rudy Gay, Juan Toscano Anderson, Brandon Clark. I am getting a disproportionate amount of Jaren Jackson right now. And that scares me because his volatility is massive. Wouldn't shock me at all for him to pick up the 3 fouls in the first 3 minutes of this game. How are you managing Jaren Jackson?
All right. So in my build on FanDuel, he is the power forward I have the most exposure to. In my build on DraftKings, although the position's obviously a little bit different, but I have Kyle Anderson as my most exposed power forward, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is second. I wish somebody would just come out and tell us right now how many minutes he's playing, though. That would be really cool.
That would be one of the more valuable pieces of information you could get today. Like if you could only know one thing, and it's obviously not like fantasy points, Jaren Jackson's minutes would go a long way. Because if he plays 32 minutes, I assume he's been fantastic.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, that we have to consider is, so for a really long time with Jaren Jackson, just the question has been, hey, how healthy is he? What's the minutes restriction? It's almost made it go overlooked as that how big fouls are an issue for him, not just in the past, but this year also. So look at his recent games where he's had his minutes, somewhat limited. He played 31 minutes last game against the Warriors, 5 personal fouls. The game before against the Kings, 20 minutes, 5 personal fouls. Stayed out of foul trouble against the Pelicans. The game before, 26 minutes against the Raptors, 5 personal fouls. Like he does not keep his hands to himself. And this has been an ongoing issue with him throughout his career. I'm way more concerned about that, I think, than most people are right now. And it's really just because of how many times I've rostered Jaren Jackson Jr. in the past. And it's like, oh, he has 3 fouls 4 minutes into the game. Like I've seen this story play out before. So I have a bunch of exposure to him and I am not comfortable with it.
That's pretty much exactly where I am right now. I am close. All right, so we've talked about Rudy Gay. Like, I would rather have all of the Jaren Jackson and cross my fingers than think that Rudy Gay plays more than 22 minutes today.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, I'm still on Jaren Jackson. Anyway, the other thing, too, is he's such a good fantasy producer. So his numbers this year, he is playing 23.5 minutes per game and scoring 28.5 DraftKings points. So the upside is massive if he gets those minutes. Also, the price has gone up, a little bit now versus what it was a couple weeks ago. But I definitely think of the other options we have, especially power forward in his price range, he is by far the highest upside. Yeah, there's just a lot of volatility with his playing time.
I'm going to scroll back and hit on all the super chats that it looks like I've missed. One from Suave. Is Curry a must on FanDuel? I would say no. How you feel about Kuzma? We're going to get to Kuzma in a bit, but unfortunately, I like him more than I want to.
I think, also FanDuel versus DraftKings is going to be a little bit different, right? So for DraftKings, I don't really think there's any strong need to play him. FanDuel is a different story. I find him, if you're playing multiple lineups, I find him hard to avoid entirely. Right now, I'm about even with the field on him, though.
Justin Alberto, Bazemore and Kuzma, or Keldon Johnson and KCP on FanDuel? This one's easy
Bazemore
for me.
Let's see. So it's Bazemore and Kuzma, or that's Bazemore and Kuzma for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's Keldon Johnson and KCP for me. Interesting. Like, I have Keldon Johnson grading out better than every other small forward today.
I have Bazemore and Keldon Johnson almost exactly even, but I prefer Kuzma to KCP.
I prefer Kuzma to KCP by quite a bit. I don't have what's the other one?
Bazemore and Keldon Johnson. I have very, very even.
Yeah, I don't have them even at all. In a GPP scenario, at least. Kent Bazemore is a relatively low standard deviation guy, so he's not picking up sort of the range of outcomes that Keldon Johnson can pick up. Which scares me because Kent Bazemore might have 8 steals today.
But I feel the same way about KCP versus Kuzma. I think the range of outcomes with Kuzma is way higher than KCP.
I'm worried more about Kyle Kuzma's minutes than anything else. Because at the very least, I don't think that I think KCP is playing 30 minutes plus barring injury. Like, he is definitely going to be on the floor. The variability for Kuzma is how much does he even play? And that could really be anything. So yeah. I agree with you there. That variability opens up a little bit more.
Yeah, Kuzma's box scores, if you open it up on Fantasy Crunch, it's just a Christmas tree. It's green, red. He's all over the place.
Yeah, trust me, I'm not at all excited about rostering Kyle Kuzma, but unfortunately that 4K price tag is hard to overlook. Anybody else for Memphis you want to touch on? To me, they're one of the easier teams as of right now, if we're assuming Grayson Allen plays, because I don't really think that I want anybody coming off of the bench.
Yeah, so no bench guys. I did slightly consider maybe getting to DeAnthony Melton for a hot second. I thought that he would be somebody who, he's a good points per minute fantasy producer. The biggest issue with him, though, is the minutes are almost never there for him because he just doesn't really make sense from a chemistry standpoint with Ja Morant. So there was a point where I was looking at his ownership earlier in the day, and I felt like, hey, if I'm looking for that contrarian guy who's maybe, like a Goga Batadze of tonight's slate, I actually think that guy could be DeAnthony Melton. It was just really hard for me to give him enough minutes to get him into lineups, though.
Soul Dope with the question, am I crazy for playing Harrell or Gasol on FanDuel? Depends what contest you're in. If it's the big high volume or like the most entry GPP, then to me, no, not at all. In particular, Montrezl Harrell for me in this spot, but he could just as easily not play.
Yeah, I have Harrell getting the backup center minutes right now, but I mean, I've said that every time I say this on a show, it immediately people get angry at me in chat. But Marc Gasol, I think, is the best center on the Lakers, particularly for playing with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, because number one, he's the best defender of the 3 centers they have, him, Drummond, and Harrell. Also, his ability to shoot is something that's valuable playing alongside Anthony Davis and LeBron James that the other 2 guys don't have. And he's a much better passer than Drummond or Harrell. So I think he fits the best with LeBron and Anthony Davis. And I think there are different teams where Drummond would fit in best. But for this particular team, I think Gasol is the best fit. And ultimately, I think he's going to win out playing more minutes in the playoffs. But I just don't know if that's going to be the case tonight. And it's not like he's min-price or anything.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. My assumption was that Marc Gasol doesn't play for this game just because it doesn't seem like it's the perfect allocation for him. I don't have a great feel for this. They basically have 4 different guys that could play center tonight. And all I know is Anthony Davis is playing 36 plus minutes somewhere, so long as he's able to be on the floor. Hashing out the rest of it just makes me super nervous. Obviously, Drummond is the first guy up in that I assume he's starting. So with that information, I'll at least feel pretty good. Only other guy I don't think that we've even said the name of. How are you feeling about Slow-Mo today?
I have a lot of exposure to Slow-Mo. He is my second favorite Grizzly on DraftKings behind Jonas Valanciunas. And part of it, he's one of these guys who, Memphis we've seen play a really deep rotation during the year. However, Kyle Anderson's been one of the only guys we've seen his minutes occasionally creep over 30 minutes outside of, the Valanciunas Morant duo. So over the last couple of games, we've seen Kyle Anderson play 29 and 31 minutes. And with this being obviously a must-win game, he seems to be one of the guys who they have a little bit more faith in than some of the other role players. And I also think he's better than most of the other role players. So Kyle Anderson, also considering where his price is at, I think that he's a pretty strong play.
Happy to get to him. To me, on FanDuel at 6,200, he's just in this mass of dudes. I'm clearly getting to him, but I don't have a gigantic, I'm not super worried about it one way or the other.
He's a 5,300 on DraftKings. So I do think he's a better play. Yeah. And also he plays multiple positions on DraftKings. So he's a much better DK play than FanDuel play, but he is the guy who I have on DraftKings. Like I said, my second favorite Grizzly on FanDuel. He is also my second favorite Grizzly. It's just a different first one. On FanDuel, my favorite Grizzly is Morant. On DraftKings, my favorite Grizzly is Valanciunas.
Taking a look at my exposure here. LeBron, good. Steph, good. AD, good. None of that makes me feel good, but we'll see. All right, back to super chats. Opposite Exo. Do either of you guys have a player you feel is going under the radar that's sticking out to you? Just got here. Sorry if you've already talked about this. We have not talked about this yet. Do you have a guy that's going under the radar to you?
Well, let's see. What qualifies as under the radar?
On a day like today, I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the ownership number? Because, I mean, realistically, I don't think there's any good plays that are under 10% owned or anything like that on DraftKings. If I had to pick one right now, it would actually be Grayson Allen at only 7% ownership. He's somebody who I think that, especially now, the game starts in 35 minutes. We don't have an update on his status. Who knows how healthy he is? But Grayson Allen, I mean, he's cheap enough on a slate where we're kind of hurting for value, where he could end up being healthy and playing extended minutes. And it looks like right now, based on the current ownership, people are just staying away from the uncertainty with him. But he's one guy at sub 10% ownership that I think could realistically score 20 plus fantasy points.
Would you be surprised if Alex Caruso at 4,300 was a necessity at the point guard spot on FanDuel?
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised in that, especially with Dennis Schroder and LeBron James both active.
I just don't know where Schroeder's at after being out for so long. 4,300 is kind of what's slowing me down there. I'm just trying to look through all of the guys that are sub 10K or sub 10%. And I mean, just what's on my screen. Montrezl Harrell, it's not that I think he's getting slept on. Like, everybody knows what has to happen for Harrell to go well. I don't think it's Brandon Clark. I don't think it's Michael Mulder. I don't think it's THT, Wes Matthews, or Devin Vassell. I don't think that it's Tyus Jones, but I do see a scenario where Alex Caruso could play 28 minutes because Schroeder's a little bit more limited. KCP picks up a foul or two. Like, they have no problem getting to Caruso. He started finals games last year. He could be a guy that sees more minutes now that it's like nut crunching time.
Yeah. You know who actually I'd rather roster, and what's his position on shooting guard on FanDuel? If Grayson Allen's out, then DeAnthony Melton, who's picking up low ownership on FanDuel and DraftKings. DraftKings only 3% rostered right now. And especially with this bringing in a lot more casual players for the play-in tournament, like, is DeAnthony Melton's ownership really going to shoot up because Grayson Allen gets ruled out if that happens like 10 minutes before lock? I tend to think not. So DeAnthony Melton is a GPP play, particularly on DraftKings, at 3% owned if Allen's out.
Yeah, I like that on GPP. On FanDuel, he's already 11%. So
yeah,
can't even really get there for what we were discussing. All right, we've been going for about an hour. We've got a couple more super chats to touch on. But first, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our schedule for today. And we got another show coming up after this at 8 p.m. Eastern. So a half hour after we are finished. That's PGA Live Before Lock. Ben and Eric talking PGA Championship. We got a major this week. You don't want to miss out on this one. This is a biggie. One of the 4 biggest ones you're going to get all year. So if you're playing golf this weekend, you should absolutely watch this show. And if you're not, you should play golf this weekend and watch this show. Do both of those things. Free premium content as well. NBA ownership rankings, free today. Gotta love it. MLB player rankings, free today. PGA ownership projections. I just told you to watch PGA Live Before Lock. You could head into it knowing the ownership projections. They are free today. And NHL ownership projections, free as well. Suave with the super chat. Looney on FanDuel. So I'll say this much. When I ran my first crunch, he was the guy that was popping up in my sorted lineups more than anybody else. I slowed that down a little bit. I don't really love the idea of paying all the way down to Looney as my most exposed center on FanDuel today. So I did nerf it, but I am still getting to a bit of Looney. How do you feel?
Yeah, so it's funny because you talked about range of outcomes with players before, and I feel pretty confident Looney's going to score right around 20 fantasy points. If you look at Kevin Looney's, let's look at Looney's box scores as of late. So he has scored FanDuel points 22, 19, 17, 21, 21, 20, 20, 8, 17, 20, 11, 20. He scores right around the same fantasy points every single game. So you never say that somebody can't have upside because anything random can happen. He can walk into a bunch of defensive stats or something like that. But based on what we've seen from him lately, he scores the same exact amount of fantasy points every day. So for him to end up being optimal, in my opinion, it probably has less to do with what he does and more to do with what the other guys do. So maybe Valanciunas gets into early foul trouble. Andre Drummond, the center minutes get really split up by the Lakers. Jakob Poeltl, maybe he just ends up scoring, 28 fantasy points. Then you start to get to a situation where Looney at 3,900 is 20 fantasy points, then looks pretty good. But to me, the upside of Looney has less to do with himself and more to do with maybe the other centers just all bust.
I just don't know who else to take at center on FanDuel is the moral of my story, because it's a terrible position. Jakob Poeltl, Joe Val, and then cross your fingers and hope you're right. Like is just not allocating this. Like if it goes poorly for Poeltl and Joe Val in that first game, is just not having the salary, the play, because to me that wouldn't be totally shocking.
No, that's what I was saying before. Is that's what I think the most likely scenario for Looney being optimal is not that he goes out and scores 30 fantasy points, because I don't even know if he's done that the entire season. I'll have to check that really quick. But the most realistic scenario where Looney ends up being optimal is just everybody else sucks, and he's just the one who's the cheapest that sucks the least.
Don't you just want to be the guy that sucks the least? Isn't that the way that you want to do it? Sounds absolutely perfect.
Listen, there's a reason that Jordan's camera's turned off in the back there. All right, let's see. He has not scored 30 fantasy points once the entire season.
What do you think he needs?
He needs everybody else to suck. It's not even a goal for him, because I don't think there isn't a realistic ceiling for him unless he just has a game in the playing game that he hasn't had once the entire season. He has to go out and score his 22 fantasy points, and the sentiments get spread out by the Lakers. Valanciunas to get in foul trouble, Poeltl to have a mediocre game, and that's how he lands in the optimal lineup. That, or maybe two of the stars in the Lakers-Warriors game just totally go nuts, and you just need the salary savings.
One final super chat from Charles here. Hey, any tips for single entries for the slate? Yeah, but you're not going to like it. Pick all the right guys. Pick all the right guys.
I have to be honest, I didn't look at single entry stuff, but I could bring it up right now. And Charles usually asks us questions about that in our Slack chat. He usually leaves some super chats about it. And I assume that there's some interest from people in the single game contrast for today. So I'll bring that up.
So I was taking that as like a one entry contest, not a just Memphis, San Antonio question.
Yeah. So I know, just because I know who Charles is and I know the questions you usually ask, he means for showdown.
Okay. Well, that is very different then. I assume I'm assuming there are showdowns for Memphis, San Antonio, but Lakers, Grizzlies, or Lakers, Warriors are what we're actually talking about here.
It could be for either. Charles, message me in Slack, or just don't leave another super chat or anything, but either message me in Slack about which game you're asking about, or just throw in the YouTube chat and I'll look out for a comment about it. If it's for both games, then I guess we could say our favorite captain pick or something, like a chalk captain and Knierim captain for each game.
That works. Jordan Reeves, Rudy Gay or Tuscan Anderson, FanDuel raw points cash. This is not even up for debate to me. It's got to be Rudy Gay if you're playing cash.
Yeah, it's Rudy Gay and not Mr. Tuscan Anderson.
No, I feel like that's a thing that you could order at Olive Garden.
Yeah, I'll take the Tuscan Anderson and butter on the side. So yeah, Juan Toscano Anderson I think is one of the weaker plays on the slate.
I agree. I don't have any. So sold out. So hypothetically speaking on FanDuel, Harrell or Looney? I mean, Looney by a lot.
Yeah, it's Looney. And I mean, I don't even know why this has to be hypothetical, but Looney.
Yeah. If you're right about Harrell, you're in a much better situation to win a GPP, because the ownership's not going to be there. And he's so good offensively that if he gets those minutes, his score can be a problem. I just don't think the amount of times that I think he actually plays enough minutes is so low that that's what brings Looney back into play here. I'd rather take my chances on Looney thinking that he plays 28 plus minutes today. Because I don't think this is a situation where going to Draymond at the 5 for an extended amount of time is going to go well for Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easily Looney for me. If Howard plays 0 minutes today, I wouldn't be surprised by the outcome whatsoever. By the way, we did get a follow-up from Charles. He just meant not for Showdown, unlike the other question you got. So I was wrong, but he said just for the full slate for single entry. So
it's the same for everything else. So much of it depends on how big that single entry contest is. If it's 100 people, then play it close to a cash lineup. If it's 10,000 people, play it slightly less than that.
Here's what we could do then. I like when we do this. Who are your most exposed players at each position? Because I think that's a good enough guideline.
I didn't hear what you said. I was reading
okay.
Slack chat. We got another super chat at that moment that you said that. Sorry.
Okay. No, all good. I said let's just go over our most rostered players at each position, because that's a good enough way.
So I'm going to be speaking from a FanDuel perspective. I don't know. Do you know if he's talking FanDuel or DraftKings?
I'm almost positive means DraftKings, but I was wrong last time, so maybe I'll be wrong again. But you could read off your FanDuel ones, and I'll come back and read my DraftKings ones.
Perfect. So most exposed players for me are going to be Ja Morant, DeMar DeRozan, Keldon Johnson, which I'm going to walk back, but still probably going to be that guy at small forward, Jaren Jackson, and Jakob Poeltl.
All right, I was correct. It was DraftKings, but whatever. This is valuable anyway. So for me, at point guard, it is DeJounte Murray, narrowly over Steph Curry. At shooting guard, it is Patty Mills. That one's uncomfortable. Small forward, DeMar DeRozan. Power forward, Kyle Anderson. And then at center, Jakob Poeltl.
There we go. Benjamin Riley said, thanks, gents. Isn't it ideal to pair Draymond with Steph if we're assuming Steph goes off? Draymond has 10+ assist upside if that's the case. I mean, I don't know if ideal is the right word, but I certainly don't have a problem doing it. To me, correlations are more important based on salary, not necessarily based on the way the two guys play together.
Yeah, so on FanDuel, I think Draymond Green is a really good play because it's hard to find good power forwards on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I think he is in play, but I think Rudy Gay, Keldon Johnson, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Kyle Anderson are all better power forward plays on DraftKings. So on FanDuel, yeah, I think it makes sense to pair Steph Curry and Draymond Green together, but not as much the correlation as much as just they're both good plays at their position.
Another super chat. Noah Takumas? Noah D. FanDuel GPP, Poeltl and Bane or DeMar and Looney? That one's not close.
DeMar and Looney.
Yes, agreed. Who's the best fade, Bron, AD, or Steph?
This is going to depend on site. For DraftKings, for me, it is Anthony Davis because on DraftKings with AD, number one, I have him projected for for the least amount of fantasy points of the trio. And he's also the most expensive while also playing at a position that's pretty easy to fill. Like there's a bunch of center options today. There's a bunch of good power forward options today. So to me, Steph Curry, LeBron James, cheaper prices, better projection, and also harder positions to fill. So AD on DraftKings. FanDuel, it's really none of them. But if it had to be one, I would say Steph, just because of how strong of plays Morant and Murray are.
I have a hard time saying it's Steph because I think that if Steph isn't a very good play, then one of LeBron or AD are probably also bad. And at that point, I think Steph is better than the worst version of one of those two guys. So I guess my answer is LeBron, just because, oh God, who's more likely to get hurt today, LeBron or AD?
Oh, AD by a mile. Are you like, have you never watched a basketball game from a DFS perspective? That is Anthony Davis. The wheels could fall off in layup lines.
Breaking news. Trey Lyles ruled out today. How is that going to affect everything that you're doing?
It won't.
No, you didn't have a lot of Trey Lyles prior to this.
Well, I already had him out. So.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Good to know. Well, we got another super chat. Murray or Morant, single entry GPP on FanDuel, 113 total entrants. By the way, Bryson Henry, thank you for listening to the show and giving us all of the information that we needed. Single entry GPP on FanDuel and the contest size. That is the information we need. And congratulations, you asked the most ridiculous question you can. Murray, to me, Morant is the better play.
It is Morant to me. I think Morant on FanDuel is. at least for me, the clear-cut number one point guard. Then I have Murray narrowly 2 over Steph Curry. And then there's a pretty big drop-off.
Is 1,300 too much to leave on the table on FanDuel? No.
Actually, for 2-game slates, I think it's preferred to leave a bunch of money on the table, especially if you're building a bunch of lineups. Because if you're playing 150 lineups in the $7.77 today, or $7.77, there's a pretty good chance that you could hit the optimal lineup if it doesn't leave any salary on the table and not even profit for the night. You might be splitting with so many entries at that point. So one of the easiest ways to differentiate, particularly on FanDuel, is leave salary on the table. DraftKings, not as much even on 2-game slates because there's so many different potential lineup constructions. Yeah. But FanDuel, I mean, just look at some of the pricing, right? Andre Drummond is 7,000. Jakob Poeltl is 6,300. Is it crazy to think Jakob Poeltl outscores Andre Drummond? I don't think so. I have Poeltl project for more fantasy points. So to me, I think like that's a pretty obvious spot to leave salary on the table. And I tend to think a lot of people just aren't going to do that. If a lot of people, especially if they're hand builders, are just making their lineup and being like, hey, I have $900 left over and I have Poeltl in my lineup, they're just going to go throw Andre Drummond in. So leaving the salary on the table is, I think, preferred for 2-game slates on FanDuel.
And then we just simply got loonies and toonies for what we do from Toronto Deck 20. So appreciate that. Threw in a bunch of super chats earlier today. Got 2 starting lineups: Morant, Brooks, Anderson, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Joe Val, Murray, Walker, DeRozan, Johnson, Poeltl. So exactly what we were expecting from both starting lineups.
No news on Grayson Allen yet, though.
No.
Interesting. Are they really not going to tell us until after the game starts on a 2-game slate with a play-in?
If he's not starting, do you even care?
Yes,
I mean, like, yes, you care, but does it matter really? It's marginal now.
Well, I would like to get to some exposure to the Anthony Melton, the 2% owned if Grayson Allen isn't going to play.
Fair. Soul Dope with another one. We're just building his lineup for him tonight, as usual. Morant and Looney, or Schroder and Jay Potato, which I can only imagine is Jakob Poeltl auto-corrected.
That is what it is, just based on the salaries and the positions there. It is Morant and Looney for me, just because I like Morant so much more than Schroder.
66. Yeah, it is Morant and Looney for me. I don't have, while I do like Jay Potato, it's not going to do enough to offset how much I like John Morant. God, I have 3 exposures right now that I'm just not happy with.
Can I guess the players?
It's not that I'm not happy with it, so I might be throwing you off the scent there, but yeah, sure.
All right, so one of them's Poeltl.
No,
it's not Potato.
No, that's why I don't think that, like.
All right, one of them's Looney then.
No, so like I just have a lot. I have so much John Morant, DeMar, and Jaren Jackson right now that it's like concerning me that I'm like funneled into one particular allocation. And it's not that I don't like those guys. Those 3 guys are all my top ranked guy at point guard, shooting guard, and power forward. I don't hate it. I just feel aggressive, more aggressive than I was expecting to be, but I'm finding it pretty difficult to alternate. Like Jaren Jackson Jr. is 6,600 on FanDuel. There's no one else in his tier, and I'm certainly not going to Juan Toscano-Anderson or Brandon Clark. I'm either paying up a lot for AD, paying up a little bit to Draymond, or paying down to Rudy Gay. Like everything is just in these tiers at power forward where there's nothing I could do about Morant for 7,500. That one's just going to happen. The other guy that I'm getting too much of, to me, is Lonnie Walker, and I'm having trouble nerfing that.
What is your preferred game script for tonight? Like what happens in these 2 games that's best for your lineups?
A relatively unappealing game in Lakers Golden State where all of the studs are pedestrian-ish, and Spurs Grizzlies overtime.
Oh yeah, I was thinking double overtime, but that might be a little greedy.
I'll only ask for 1. I think that seems pretty reasonable. All right, I got a couple things that I need to plug first before the final 17 minutes of this show, and that would be a promo and 2 promo codes. So we are doing a giveaway right now. I guess I should have said giveaway and 2 promo codes, but whatever, you guys get it. We're doing an NBA play-in giveaway on Twitter and Instagram if you want to win a free month of Awesemo Plus. So check out the pinned tweet at Awesemo_com if you want to enter both of them. You could follow the instructions there, but it's a like, it's a retweet. You're following accounts and you're trying to predict who has more points, LeBron or Steph today. So head to twitter.com/Awesemo_com and check out the pinned tweet for details. And then we got 2 promos. 1, Gold Rush, one big word, 25% off an Awesemo Plus Platinum package. This is valid through tomorrow. So if you don't get it by the end of tomorrow, you donezo. You get 25% off an Awesemo Plus Platinum package. That's everything. That's every sport. Every single thing that we offer is included, except for Fantasy Cruncher. You'll have to add that on as well. Gold Rush, one big word. The other one, play-in. And I'm just going to parrot what Laffy said. He is not a fan of the fact that play-in has the dash in it as the promo code. So it's PLAY-IN. I am not going to make a single comment on that. I will allow him to dig his own grave for our behind the scenes stuff, but you should use the play-in code. You can get 2 weeks of our NBA Express package for the price of 1. So we're talking about showdown and single game projections and ownership. It's going to be good stuff. And it's 2 weeks of NBA Express for $4.95. So we don't have to go too crazy. It's pretty cheap. If you ever go to Starbucks, skip a coffee that day and you're covering that NBA Express package for 2 weeks. And there are a lot of more super chats.
Yeah, but I was just looking at that as you were reading. I was like, oh boy, we're going to be busy the rest of the show.
Corey Ballmer, you guys like the Spurs with the points or nah? I think whatever the line is whatever it should be. And if you think you can beat that at a garbage book somewhere else, you should do it.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Grizzlies favored by 4 points. I don't see anything ridiculously off about that line personally.
Yeah. Jay Potato was on purpose. Mills versus Walker, thoughts?
I have a lean towards Patty Mills.
I have a lean towards Lonnie Walker. No part of that makes me feel good. DK single entry, 2,000 person field. A Dean, listening. DeMar and Keldon or Draymond and Gay? I got to go to the starters there.
Yeah, DeMar. It was DeMar and Draymond was one of them, right? Or DeMar and Keldon.
Keldon.
Oh, yeah, it's DeMar and Keldon. Like DeMar DeRozan is clearly one of my top plays on the slate, like by a really wide margin.
I agree. I'm in the $555 contest. Keldon Johnson or Rudy Gay. I feel like Rudy is the more contrarian option, but it being a low entry contest, I have Keldon right now. I'm Weatherman 7, by the way.
I prefer Rudy Gay of those two.
I don't know. Is the 555 a DK contest?
I don't know the answer to that. I just have more exposure to Rudy Gay than
it's got to be a DraftKings question because they're 2 separate positions on FanDuel, and I can't imagine asking that question on FanDuel like that.
Yeah, I have more exposure to Rudy Gay. Part of that's also because he's less expensive. If salary isn't an issue, I do have Keldon Johnson projected for slightly more fantasy points. I just have more exposure to Rudy Gay because he is less expensive.
Easy enough. Good God, this is going to be a terrifying slate. Just truly, truly terrifying. I just got too much of this first game. That first game needs to be a damn track meet. Ooh, Sam Van Dam, Markieff Morris season. I have Markieff Morris projected for exactly 0 minutes tonight. So,
by the way, Grayson Allen is playing tonight. So there we go. Got the news there. Nothing has to change for that. So from the Lakers, by the way, it's definitely not Markieff Morris season. I don't have him playing 0 minutes, but I don't have him playing significant minutes either. So he is not in my player pool.
No, I would not be rostering Markieff. I would not roster Markieff Morris. I don't believe if I had 300 lineups.
Oh, I would need more than 300 to play Markieff Morris.
Well, I was just saying 300 is the normal constitution for most pros.
Yeah, I would need, I don't know, maybe 500 lineups is where I start to get to Markieff Morris.
Lonnie Walker and KCP or Desmond Bain and Keldon Johnson in FanDuel cash. Neither one of those.
If those are the options that you have to take, then I would say Walker and KCP, but I agree with Josh that it's neither.
Well, you should immediately switch Desmond Bane to Patty Mills at the very least if you're taking that second group, because he's a better play and he's cheaper. I would try to go to Lonnie Walker over Mills if we're talking about cash in that spot, like the first lineup. Walker and KCP, I guess, is the answer, but to me, KCP is not a cash option either. I would be turning Lonnie Walker into Keldon Johnson if I could, assuming he's not already in the lineup. Either way, Jordan, I think you should be going back to the drawing board. Sorry. What else we got in? What else we got here?
Was there more? Oh, no, we got the Marquise Morris
We've made our
question.
way through all the super chats. And we got 577 likes. Quick, hit that thumbs up. We're north of 2,000 people. Let's run that number north of 600 at the very least. Least you guys can do. Yeah, I am so overly exposed to San Antonio, Memphis. So whatever happens in that game, I hope it's big. Go Jaren Jackson. Go Ja Morant. Go DeMar DeRozan.
I dig it.
It's crazy how little of this Lakers Golden State game I have in relationship to the field. Like, I just need Kent Bazemore and Juan Toscano Anderson to basically not play. I need Andrew Wiggins to like basically not play. I'm so anti Golden State tonight. It's nuts.
So do you think it would be beneficial to you if just that game ends up being a blowout?
Yes.
I hate blowouts for 2 games.
Do you think Kuzma gets a blowout run?
Yes, I do think Kuzma gets blowout run.
Then yes, I do want it to be a blowout.
That's actually one of the appeals I have to Kuzma. I gave him a little bit of a boost just because of that.
Well, let's hope that it happens. I got 2 more super chats. KCP and Triple J or Brooks and Gay in a DraftKings GPP. I have to assume that it's the first one.
Definitely the one with Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah. And there's A. Dean. I might be wrong, but I feel like I haven't really heard Andrew Wiggins' name much. Thoughts? So I think he's a good play. He happens to be like the main casualty from all of my construction today.
For any particular, just because of the pricing and whatnot, or is there any other reason that you're not super high on him?
So he ranks as my 4th best shooting guard. I think he's quite clearly behind DeRozan, and they're in similar pricing tiers. I'm getting to more Dylan Brooks over Wiggins. And then Lonnie Walker is my preferred shooting guard option, but I have so much DeMar that it's pinching everything else. So Wiggins is the guy that is slipping through the cracks for me more than anybody else on this slate.
You know what's funny? Brooks is one of the players I'm terrified of not having all that much exposure to. Like, he's in my player pool, but I'm a little bit underweight to the field. He is such a volatile player. First of all, he stinks. But second of all, he doesn't care that he stinks and he just shoots anyway. Like, in his mind, I think he thinks he's the best player on the Grizzlies. At least he plays that way. And yes, it's really scared me that he might just have one of those games where he hits his shots. It doesn't happen, super frequently, but every once in a while, he has games where he just makes his shots and scores, 30 points. We saw him do that against the Kings last week. And yeah, he's a really highly volatile player that I'm a little afraid I don't have enough of.
I really just, another one from Soul Dope. Bazemore or Keldon Johnson on FanDuel. To me, it's not even close.
To me, it is very close. I lean slightly towards Bazemore. I know that you heavily like Keldon Johnson, though.
I heavily have Keldon Johnson. I'd like to be a little bit more specific. Like is relative, but I do have it as not particularly close.
So is that just real? Do you have Keldon Johnson projected for more fantasy points overall than Bazemore also?
I do.
Okay, I have Bazemore for more fantasy points. There's also an $800 price difference between them.
Yeah, 20. I have it 24 to 22.
Interesting. How many minutes did you give Bazemore?
30, I believe. 30.
Yeah, that's what I did too. Interesting.
And then I think it's a pace thing more than anything else. I will admit, I think that I have been pretty massively heavy on Keldon Johnson for most of this year. He hasn't been great as of late, 0.76 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days, but he has been a 0.85 guy basically for his career. And I'm still projecting him at that particular rate. It's weird for him to succeed. I almost want Jaren Jackson to get in foul trouble, but that'll obviously not help me at all.
Yeah, I have, I just have Keldon Johnson with a lower baseline than you then.
Okay. Oof. Well, I think that whatever I have here right now is about to be whatever I have here for the day. Well, the good news is we don't have to like scramble. Oh God, now that I said it, what's about to happen?
Marcus Gasol starts over Andre Drummond.
Could you imagine? What's funny is it's probably what they should do.
Right? If there is one lineup note from the late game that would totally screw up your lineups, there's nothing you could do about it. It would be, for me, it would be Gasol starting over Drummond. And that's, by the way, I don't think this is likely. I would say the odds of it happening is like 2%. But it's the only thing I could think within the realm of possibility. What would be the just nonsense Biyombo starts over Cody Zeller move of the day? And I think that would be Gasol over Drummond.
Oh God, it would be miserable. It would be miserable. CJB 33. Oh, Blake Rubin. Nope. Oh wow, we got a bunch of these. There's 4 of them. Sunflower, Jaren Jackson and Lonnie, or Brooks and Keldon in DK cash.
That would be Jaren Jackson and Lonnie Walker for me.
Okay. I don't have a concept of DK cash, so we just have to go with that. Can Dennis Schroder be a pivot off of Murray in a tournament? Yeah.
I'd heavily prefer DeJounte Murray, but also I assume this is a FanDuel question.
Yeah, I mean the gap between them is $2,200.
No, never mind. So I guess it would have to be DraftKings then, because the price difference is a little bit narrower. I'm just gonna say this: if you really want to do that, go ahead. I think DeJounte Murray is a way better play, and I think that Dennis Schroeder is picking up a little bit too much ownership.
I don't have much else to say there. Jesus, 3v3 on Yahoo. CJB, man, I don't have a clue here, man. DeRozan, Murray, Morant, or Curry, Pirtle, and Brooks.
Oh, it's DeRozan, Murray, and Morant.
It should be, yeah. I mean, I have no concept of what the salaries are, but I assume whatever they are, they're the same, or at least like close to similar.
But I'm just quickly adding up the fantasy points in my head, and I'm gonna have Morant, the Morant, Murray, and DeRozan combo for more fantasy points than Curry, Pirtle, and Brooks.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I assume he's asking us that question because those two groups of 3 are basically the same in salary, and if that's the case, it's DeRozan, Murray, and Morant. We've been asked worse 3v3s where the difference in salary is like $6,000, so you never know. Florida Void. So on DraftKings, if salary isn't an issue and the contest size is 300, man, we've traded these people perfectly. Would y'all still take Rudy over Keldon? I would.
So for me, I have Keldon Johnson projected for slightly more fantasy points than Rudy Gay. But as I was saying before, I just have more exposure to Rudy Gay because there's a price gap between them. But if salary is not an issue at all, then Keldon.
4 minutes to go, everybody. If you do not have your lineups in yet, you're probably scrambling. So you should put them in ASAP. Do that right now. Tall the God in our premium Slack. Is it crazy to have no Lakers in a DK GPP single entry?
No, not at all. I think my single entry lineup has no Lakers in it. No issue with it.
I mean, what's the easiest? Like, the expectation is definitely not 0 of any team in an optimal lineup today, but that doesn't mean that it's a problem to do it. I think there are clearly more than a few viable constructions to get to that sort of option. But I would, more often than not, I would assume I have one of everything in most of my lineups.
Yeah. For me, my single entry lineup is a stack of Grizzlies Spurs with Steph Curry in it.
There we go. Anything else that we can touch on here? How you feeling? How you feeling about today's slate?
I hope the games are close. Like I've been really looking forward to this Warriors Lakers game. Here's something actually I think it's interesting to talk about. We got 2 minutes left. This is something a little different than what we normally talk about. If the Warriors lose today, if the Warriors beat the Lakers today, I've put a lot of thought into this. The first thing I'm going to do is bet the Suns to win the Western Conference because their schedule opens way up then. Because the playoffs, if the Warriors end up winning, the Suns would play the Warriors in the first round, and then the next round would be the winner of Blazers Nuggets. And then we would have the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Jazz all on one side of the bracket. So there's a different angle just of something I've been thinking about the games from. If the Suns end up on a bracket side away from Clippers, Lakers, and Jazz, then they have such an easier path to the finals than any other team in the West.
I like it. That's a really good shout. That's a really good shout.
They're plus 750, by the way.
God, I hope that the Lakers just win tonight.
I do not. I just think it makes this so much more interesting. Can you imagine the Lakers?
I don't want to watch like Lakers Spurs on Friday with the winner going into the playoffs. Like, to me, that's just a terrible way to spend a Friday.
I just think it would be so funny if they're just the panic if the Lakers are potentially going to miss the playoffs. I don't. It's very unlikely to happen. I just think it would be funny the concept of it and the reactions.
Oh God, it would be so irritating. Could you imagine if if LeBron and AD were healthy for both games? Like, they both played 36 minutes apiece and they dumped them both.
This one, it's kind of realistic just because Curry could have a ceiling game, right? Curry goes out and just hits 1,000,000 threes, they win. It would be really hard for me to imagine the Lakers losing at home to the Grizzlies or the Grizzlies or the Spurs, especially the Spurs. Like, that game would be almost like the Lakers would be like a minus 1,000 favorite in that game or something.
Not that I would ever hear it happen because I would never tune into it, but like, I don't want the Lakers to miss and have Skip Bayless type people squawking like assholes because I can't stand that shit. And that would be infuriating. And it'd get like retweeted into my timeline. It's not like I would turn on ESPN. I had better things to do, like stab myself. Anything else?
No, I think that's you stabbing yourself. That's a good way to close.
Perfect, everybody. One last time, please hit that like button. We are locked. So good luck tonight, everybody. PGA Live Before Lock is coming up at 8 p.m. Ben and Eric, go check that out. Check out Best Bets. Check out all the good stuff for the PGA this week because we got a major and that's good stuff. Jordan, thank you for playing that music. I hope you're finally finished doing whatever it is you were doing in the darkness back there. Enjoy yourself. Good luck, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. I'm not opening my phone until 9 o'clock. I don't.